Hey, jerks. Happy Friday. Hope you're having a good start to your weekend and just chilling, not stressing out. Everything's going to be all right. In Bederow we trust. I just slept good last night, even though I'm tired today. But I did sleep good last night. I listened to attorney Mark Bederow, and I still feel that way. I think we're going to be good. I think if people want to do something today, the big thing, if you're inclined to support the Kearney Defense Fund, send a message that way. Let's raise a lot of money. That website's been down most of the day. It's back up. I just made a donation. freekarenread.net. It's going on the ticker on the scroll on the bottom. If you can't get there now, make a donation later tonight. freekarenread.net. Send it to your friends. Post it around on social media. Let people know they should donate. A lot of new people here, they don't even know that they can donate. I've been getting people I know in my life just interested in this case just this week, and they wanted to know where can we donate. They sent a donation, freekarenread.net. So I want to encourage everyone, and if you are making donations, take a screen capture, post it up on Twitter and Facebook, send it to us. We'll post it for you too. I want to encourage everyone to do that. We got some great guests tonight. Of course, we got the dream team, the 3Ms, Mazza Media, and attorney Mark Bederow are here.
What's going on,
Welcome,
everybody?
gentlemen.
How are you?
Great. I mean, I'm doing the best I can, right?
That's all we can do at this particular point. It's a big time waiting game, but definitely there were some developments today that definitely indicate that this thing is going towards a more conclusive direction at this point. So we had a lot of unknown yesterday with really nothing breaking, but today, it seemed like the jury was hung for a while, but towards the end they wanted extra time till 4:15, which was, they could have just left at 3:30 if they wanted to, but they decided to go till 4:15 to deliberate. So it definitely shows that they're making some significant headway, and we'll end up seeing what ends up happening next week. So,
and attorney Bederow, what are you thinking now?
It's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be an acquittal or a hung jury. I think the hung jury possibility is certainly greater than it was yesterday, just as a matter of common sense and what's happening. But I thought the late day developments were interesting. And if you want to read tea leaves, which of course you should never do, but I'm going to try to do it anyway. It's all speculation, so take it for what it's worth. But the fact that she gave them a chance to go home, which is ridiculous, by the way, just work a full day. And then if they say we want to go home, let them go home. But I mean, it's like a leading question. You're inviting them to pack it in. But when they sent their note that they were essentially deadlocked, kind of, she could have done any number of things. She could have given them, I guess in Massachusetts, what you're calling a Tui Rodriguez charge. That's new vernacular for me. We call it an Allen charge in New York and most places, which is just telling the jury, giving them a pep speech, keep at it. And she didn't do that. She should have done it. It's important to do it because you can't really declare a mistrial until you do it. And by not doing it and just telling them, all right, go back to work, I thought she was just wasting the rest of the afternoon, because if they end up coming back with a similar note, then she'd have to give the charge and send them out again. But when she pulled them back at 3:30 and they said, let us work till 4:15, that suggested something. Again, speculation, don't hold me to it. But that made me feel that it's probably skewed with a lot of people on one side and either one or very few on the other, because if there's a chance to finish on a Friday afternoon in summer, you're going to do that. Who doesn't want to do that? If it was 7-5, 6-6, even 8-4, and you say, the hell with this, it's nice out, it's Friday, I know I have to come back Monday anyway, I'm done. And they didn't do that. So I thought the chance for a verdict went up a little bit. It didn't happen, but they also didn't say that we're hopelessly deadlocked or anything like that. So I feel like it could be 11-1, 10-2, and that's reason for optimism. But ultimately, you still don't know if that person will ever change their mind. I mean, they should certainly hold true to their values if they're common sense and reasonable. You hope it's not a kook. You hope they didn't let a kook slip by on the jury. One of the old things when we were trained in the DA's office for jury selection was you do two things: you brainwash and you get rid of the kooks. And hopefully they did that. We'll see. But you have to wait and see. You don't know. If it's a hung jury, though, which I'm not ready to say it will be, as disappointing as that will be, I don't know that they're going to retry it again. I said that yesterday, and I'm not sure that would happen. A mistrial would be a much better result for them, the Karen Reed people, even though they wouldn't like it, they'd be disappointed. But I'll tell you, he'll be disappointed even more. Michael Morrissey and that crowd. It will be a political and logistical disaster for them if they have to make a decision one way or the other on whether to try this again. So they're not happy about it either.
Yeah, Adam Lally didn't look too happy. He was like, whatever.
Adam Lally will rather have an acquittal than retry this case.
Yeah.
We have
100%.
Melanie Little here. I'm going to bring her up right now. Attorney Melanie Little is joining us tonight. Welcome, Melanie Little.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me. I know that we've been trying to connect for so long. So
Yeah.
I thought when I had Mark on with me earlier, I said, oh, you're going on Young Jerks tonight. Tell him I'll come on.
And I
Give him my
did.
email. I know you had it, but it was like we just could never connect. So you guys are doing a great job. And I thought I would come say hello. And, we got to all rally now because we're kind of in the home stretch here,
That's it. Yeah. Nice to meet you again, Melanie. Hope you're doing well.
Me too. Yeah. Pretty good. We're doing pretty good. Exhausted, just like I'm sure all of you are.
That's the way I feel. Like so tired right now.
And if we're all so exhausted, can you imagine what the family is feeling?
Yeah,
like?
Karen.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just you can imagine.
Yeah,
what did you think about today? About just
what a wild ride. It's like another day on the roller coaster that just, it's like the trial that never ends. Earlier this morning when they came in, and I think that they kind of thought they were going to send a note in, the judge was going to excuse them, and they were just going to be like, we can't come to a decision. We've done everything we can. We just can't come to a decision. I think they really thought that the judge was going to let them go. And then they came, she said, no, I'm not going to give them this Tui Rodriguez instruction, which is like an Allen charge in New York, and sent them back. And then when they came back at 3:30 and they told the judge, we want to deliberate until 4:15. Mark and I thought together that, oh, wow, this could mean something. It could mean nothing. But I really felt like if they needed another 45 minutes at 3:30, maybe they really thought they were getting close. But it turns out they're not. So we're going back on Monday, everybody. And everybody has to go home and live with this for the whole weekend. So I don't know. Maybe they'll go home and maybe they'll think about it. My initial thought is that maybe there's just one person who's a guilty and the rest of them who are all not guilty. And they're thinking, maybe we can change this person's mind, but I don't know. I don't think there's any way in hell that 12 people will ever agree that she is guilty.
No.
I don't see that.
No,
considering that. Yeah. Considering it's more likely like one or two holdouts.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it was risky for Adam Lally? Like I could understand the defense being happy with a hung jury at this point because her life is on the line.
Right.
But for him to push for more, to basically maybe it comes back that she's acquitted. Do you think it's a big risk for him that he made a mistake asking the jury to deliberate more, Adam Lally?
No, I don't. I think for him, it's like, what does he care? He gets paid. He says he's on salary. He doesn't care. Win or lose, he's getting paid. He doesn't care. But I think that he knows, or maybe he has marching orders, from the powers that be. That, look, we don't want to try this case again because either we're going to look stupid and have to drop the charges, or it's going to cost us a hell of a lot of money to try this case again. And the public perception of this is so horrific. Like, we can't go through this again. Just keep pushing.
Good
so
point.
I don't know what his marching orders were, but that's my gut. And I don't really think he's got the be all and end all decision there here. I don't really think it's up to him in the end. What do you say, Mark?
Yeah, no, I think right before you got on, if you gave him a choice of let's keep deliberating or just give me the acquittal now, I think he would take the acquittal now, take a 5-day vacation, buy a couple of cartons of Marlboro Reds, enjoy himself, and come back to work and make some more donuts on the next case. I mean,
That's
look,
right.
I think that's what he is. He's a company man for the government, and he's
government stooge. Yeah,
he's
Right.
doing his job as he's instructed to do it, and I don't think he cares about the outcome here. I'm not saying he's rooting for an acquittal. Anybody would rather win, whatever your definition of winning is. But at this point, do you think that the prospect of doing this again, and if he does, for the love of God, like somebody help him so he doesn't drop
Oh,
dead?
man.
I mean, I actually feel bad for him if he has to do it alone again. But I still, I listen, call me crazy. I still think it's an acquittal. And what you have, assuming it's 11-1 or 10-2 or speculation, could be wrong. If you're dealing with people, maybe over the weekend, they relax a little, they come back Monday, and then if the jurors that you want to help convince them have a conversation about science, maybe they'll go watch Breaking Bad over the weekend and say, yeah, I'm science, and because at this point, to believe that there's no reasonable doubt means you're essentially a science denier. I mean, Melanie, we're talking
You
about
can
this.
call me Mel. I've
Yeah.
been called far worse, Mark. You know that.
Sure. But it's literally denying science. And we were talking about too, if the way you could really project this to someone who thinks that there's guilt here, you say, hear me out about the science, which means the taillight could not have shattered the way it did, which means there's no car accident. That's per se reasonable doubt. And then when they start saying, yeah, but the taillight pieces and this crazy conspiracy theory, well, if the taillight didn't shatter from the car accident, then it didn't shatter at all, but yet it shattered on the lawn. And that's a perfect segue into, you know what? How did it get there? It wasn't natural. It didn't reveal itself by the hand of God, like Buchanan essentially testified. It was put there by a human being. And all of a sudden, the crazy defense theory that they're rejecting starts to make a lot of sense. So if they put it to them that way, that's at least reasonable doubt, isn't it? Never mind what probably happened. And I wonder if they'll request a legal review of the definition of reasonable doubt. I've heard that before. I've heard juries do that. Judge, can you tell us again what reasonable doubt is? They haven't asked for a lot of evidence, which is really interesting. And the only thing they asked for was the CERT report, which means they're talking about taillight pieces and car accidents, or at least were. And it's confounding to us because there's so much reasonable doubt here. It's
So much.
suffocating.
How about a read back of, and I can't remember which witness this was. Maybe you guys can help me. One of the first witnesses to testified that when they started playing with the taillight in the Sally port, it kind of like fell apart or exploded or broke into pieces.
Yeah.
Somebody said that in the very beginning of the case.
The Canton goofball who I think used the leaf blower or something. That I think it was
Good.
might have been
Gallagher.
Sergeant Good. I think it was Good that went and got his leaf blower. Gallagher used the leaf blower.
That's right.
I think that's who I mean. I think it was Gallagher who said in the Sally port he saw it crack.
Right.
Which
like they were removing it and it broke.
Which may have been, like, in hindsight, a really dumb thing for him to say. I mean, maybe he was in the Sally port when, the bad thing happened, because why?
Right.
I mean, wait a minute. Why would they be removing the taillight that early when the Canton police are there? I mean, is he essentially admitting he was there when Proctor broke the taillight? Think about that for a minute.
I know even I want to go back and rewatch that because I know I'm not imagining it. And if you guys don't know, maybe somebody in the chat knows, but there definitely was early testimony. It was in the first couple of days. And I remember Lally like rushing right past it, like trying to pivot like he always does, get off the subject of anything bad.
He was a Canton cop, and they should have been uninvolved when Proctor was having the whoever remove the housing of the taillight. Did he inadvertently testify about them dinging the taillight?
I think I'm up to like 8 legal pads full of notes.
That's Gallagher. Yeah. Someone said I was seeing a post coming from earlier in the month that said Gallagher testified the taillight shattered when they removed it from the car at Sallyport.
When the Canton guys should not have been involved when the state police people were having the housing removed to be tested. This could be an actual admission inadvertently of somebody being in Sallyport when the car was first brought there.
Right. It's when he brought the Stop and Shop bag back with the solo cups in it and put it right next to the murder weapon in the Sallyport. It might have been that day or the day that, was it Maureen Hartnett, the one who went and inspected the vehicle in the Sallyport? She was from.
she's the one who said we had it removed. So if
And we had a guy that knew how to do it, right?
but yeah, but when I'm thinking out loud, and I just
That was
don't
the
remember.
day.
I don't have time to go back and look. So if I'm
know.
wrong, just everybody tell me to shut up. But
It stuck out to me though.
did Gallagher say this happened when the I think Hartnett was her name was doing that, or did he just say
No,
we were
it was in his own testimony that he said it. And he
Right.
said we were in the Sally port and we had we knew
Who
how
was
to remove it and somebody removed it and it broke. I'm
but
pretty
was
sure.
he describing Hartnett, or was he maybe describing Proctor by accident? Is what I'm asking.
No, because she didn't know how to remove it. And she said, I think in her own testimony that there was somebody there who knew how to do it. So they had to call him in. And again, he
Brian
kind of like
Wallace.
pivoted away from that subject.
Yeah, Wanless. I think it's Brian Wanless, Canton police officer. I wonder why he didn't get called to testify.
Why were the Canton cops playing with the tail
I
light?
know.
But they were
After they recused themselves.
God, it's such a shit show for
There's
so
so
many.
much reasonable doubt. But that's just like if I was sitting on the jury, you know, that stuck out to me. And I'd say, wait a second. So you're saying that this evidence revealed itself over however many undocumented searches in the weeks following. And yet this guy testified at the very beginning that when the car was in the Sally port, the taillight broke into pieces when they were taking it away. I'm thinking like, what?
And they don't have a single photograph of the tail light
Nope.
before it ended up in the Sally port because Proctor wasn't interested in that. It's that alone is just discredits everything they say about the tail light. It's unbelievable. Okay, well,
Yeah, I think it was Gallagher too. Yeah.
all right. Anyway, I still think they could come back on Monday. They try for a little bit. If they send another note, they'll get the charge. They try a little more, and then if they can't do it, then the worst case scenario I think happens for Morrissey. I think a hung jury is literally the worst political case scenario he could have. It's worse than an acquittal for him.
Why
Yeah.
do you think a hung jury is worse than acquittal?
Because now you have a decision to make. Am I
That's
going
right.
to do this again? And if you are going to do it again, am I going to vouch for the credibility of Michael Proctor and call him as a witness? Am I going to call Yuri Buchanan, who I think has a lot of trouble legal if he testifies again? I think he perjured himself about a lot of things. You now know. Am I going to have to answer questions about this inverted video? You know, like the defense is going to have time. They learned about the inverted video in the middle of trial. It's like a fire drill. There's no time. Now they can investigate, start, making motions for sanctions and, demanding answers and this and that, all kinds of things. So politicians are going to complain. Nobody around here wants to listen to another trial. Do these Alberts and McCabe's, are they willing to testify again? Are the feds going to take another swing at them and dump more materials on the defense?
So
good
that
way?
right there was a point that you made earlier today, and I really liked a lot because I thought that was a really huge point. Was regardless of this hung jury, if a hung jury result, if it goes on again, whatever, the feds have more time to step in again in that situation. And whether or not Karen Reed is, not guilty or hung jury, that there's still time for them to do just about anything. So it's going to be interesting to see in the future here what federal activity there is out there.
In particular, since the feds, unlike if there is a kook on the jury, which again, they may, whatever. I don't want to disparage anyone. You don't know what's going on in there, but it sounds kookish, to be honest with you. But the feds, clearly, this based on the Arca report, they believe that she's innocent. That because they follow the experts. And if the only theory of her guilt is a car accident, then they see that she's innocent. No, that's me. That's my.
It's not me.
I can't figure out how to when I use this computer how to keep.
Do not disturb. Is it a Mac?
Oh yeah. See,
go to the top of your browser. There's two little bars there. Click on that. Hit do not disturb, and it won't bother you.
Oh my!
I'm here to help.
There we go.
Now I just lost
tech support.
I'll do it in a minute because I can't.
You can call Ian Whiffen, the tech support guy, and he'll tell you what to do. He answers the phone.
Yeah, but
right.
If they think she's completely innocent, and what they're gonna do is want to prevent this from happening. Right now is bad enough, and if they have other materials that don't compromise their investigations or they no longer need to be secretive, then I would assume they're going to dump it if they can. And if they have other stuff they want to look at that's able to be given out, they'll do it. So nothing good can come from a possible retrial, and the case is never going to get better for the DA, that is. Meanwhile, the defense is going to have about 60 to 70 transcripts of witnesses that they will have to add to the list of inconsistent statements. They'll have the ability to kind of refine their case, I think, make a few different decisions, in hindsight that lawyers are always on the fly adjusting, but nothing is worse than giving really skilled lawyers time without the stress of a trial to recalibrate what they're doing. And these guys are geniuses and will be able to do that. And I think they would, would they call, for example, a tow truck driver? I would. Would you call the Dighton police officer on your own case? I would, or at least maybe cross-examine him, show him, there's no picture to show him, but just have him really explain what it is. Ask him if he was ever interviewed by the state police. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can do, I think, to just drive it home. And if you're Morrissey, if you don't prosecute, then all the O'Keefes come after you. But if you do, if you're a taxpayer and you see what's going on, do you really want to spend more money on this?
He's damned if he does, and he's damned if he doesn't. He's going to get hate either way. So it's not a good decision.
And I think you could actually make an argument that they're in unethical territory. I mean, in light of the article, legally by the Rule 3.8, which relates to prosecutors, special rules, responsibilities for prosecutors. I mean, you could argue that because of the ARCA report, there's no probable cause to believe she's guilty. I mean, to me, I think there probably is not even that low threshold. And if you attempt to prosecute someone without probable cause, you could theoretically be sanctioned. I don't know if anyone would file a complaint against him for that, but if they did, that's not encouraging people, by the way. I don't really.
No, don't do that.
But it's a disaster for him. You can't win, and they're not going to win the case anyway.
Right.
I got a question about Kate Peter. Apparently this person thinks Lally was meeting with Kate Peter, and they want to know if you think that that's shady, whether he could have any issues of it. I'd also want to bring up the fact that she doxed Dr. Wolf and his his kids. So basically put her kids' pictures up there. Some disinformation today that was just completely hoaxed, made up. I don't think Lally's going to get in trouble for meeting with Kate Peter, but I'm wondering what the attorneys have to say.
No, I mean, why? I mean, he's allowed to meet with people. I mean, if he chooses to hang out with the Jennifer McCabe's and whatever her name is, I can't say the thing that's on the screen. I just can't.
Yeah, say Kate Peter or Kate.
Yeah, it's KP either way. I mean,
right. Well, I get it. I get it.
Safer way.
If that's the kind of people he wants to associate with, whatever, there's nothing you can do about that. So it's not improper per se. It's a little weird, but whatever.
I mean, she's their asset. I know for a fact that she made a deal with them. That's why she was harassing me, trying to get me to talk to Brian Tully. So
all right, I'll be out of here. See you guys. I'm looking out. I'm tapping out. I'm out.
Are you freaking out?
No, I said I'm tapping out. I'm gonna say goodbye. No. Why would he be meeting with her? I don't.
It's weird. Yeah. I don't know.
Why would he be? I don't know. I don't.
But what's sick about this though? And I guess if she's the one who did this, now they've made a scientific expert who doesn't know anyone from the case. The guy's clearly, a professional, successful engineer, doctor, whatever, nice wife, nice kids, nice family. All he did was get hired by the FBI to give an independent report. He does that, testifies. I don't know any of these people in this case. I didn't even know who Karen Reed was. And he gives an opinion that these people don't like, but it's based in science and defended well. And now for being a witness in a case that he had nothing to do with, his little kids' pictures are getting blasted on the internet. What is wrong with these people?
Yeah, we've been asking that question for a long time about a lot of them, quite honestly.
That's just sick.
That's been the issue here. One of the biggest things about this whole case is you have one of these individuals that was clearly seen in a Free Karen Reed shirt about 8 months ago now, and then all of a sudden is out there today with the Karen Reed is guilty sign. And then you have another one in that group that was basically acting like a concerned aunt when Turtle Boy got arrested for the first time in October, and now she's about as anti-Turtle Boy and anti-Karen Reed as you can possibly get. These people, I don't believe they truly care about Karen Reed or John O'Keefe or any of these people at all. I think that their investment's just been that they hate Turtle Boy. They have Turtle Boy derangement syndrome, and they're just lunatics about this stuff. And it's just go away. Everybody's here for Karen Reed, and if you're not here for Karen Reed, then you got people that are here for John O'Keefe or whatever, But these particular individuals do not seem to, at any level, have any concrete interest in this particular case, other than the fact that Dr. Turtle Boy himself, Aidan Kearney, has an invested interest in this and has been a part of this story. And again, he was on Fox today, and then hours later, who shows up? It's drama that we don't need. Turtle Boy's done an outstanding job. He deserves to be. He's an award-winning journalist. He deserves to be an award-winning journalist again for all he's done. And people like myself and many others would have never even heard about this story if it wasn't for him and him popularizing it and really getting it to my attention and making me want to speak out about what I've seen here after taking a lot of time to read what he wrote, but also independently discuss and determine what I believe, which ended up becoming right in line with them. So they try to say like, well, you're just going around with the Turtle Boy mob. No, I happen to like what he had to say. It was a very great point. After looking at it myself analytically, I've come with many of the same conclusions as of thousands and thousands and thousands of people out there that are only following this case more and more in recent weeks. But they're out there, they're causing drama. They were out there mouthing off the Karen Reed supporters who've been nothing but peaceful out there and have been in adherence with the police. These individuals also passed the buffer zone today with Karen Reed's guilty signs in the state police. In fact, the man that's ahead of all of them had to tell them to get back behind that line because they were causing a disruption. So
They didn't find them or arrest them?
no, they just basically gave him a warning. Tommy found himself in a little bit of trouble yesterday. I guess he might have had some some kind of gear on that said "Free Karen Reed," and that same cop said, you're, I think you need to take that off or something. They just let him go. Usually, they're just giving everybody a tap on the wrist, basically.
Well, except for DePina, who happens to be a black man. They gave him all he did was beep the horn.
Yeah, he beeped this horn, and then I don't want to talk anymore.
He came on the show.
Yeah.
I mean, he basically gave me a quick interview. He got fined. He got a fine, which is just kind of
for beeping his horn as he passed the courthouse.
Yeah, he was on the left side of the building, and he was beeping the horn, and the cops just kind of walked over to him, and surrounded the vehicle and gave him a fine.
Problem. The selective enforcement on the way they treated us that day, Mazza, was not good.
Oh my goodness, yeah. They were doing it today too. I saw them poaching people, you're not media, get out of here. You're not media out here. I'm like, what do you mean I'm not media? I'm Mazza Media. Come on. He's like, no, out, go.
Don't you know who I am?
Yeah.
Credentials when you're Mazza Media. Come on.
It's just funny. The state police want to tell us who could stand on the sidewalk now.
Right. Oh yeah, they booted us. It was just like, geez. Next time I come back, I'm coming back with credentials. All right.
This is all arguments for a change of venue. Yep. Is a retrial.
Yeah.
The questions come up a lot. Could they request a change of venue?
Wouldn't you? Hell yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. This judge there's people out there on our side that are probably afraid that if the jury came back Monday with a not guilty verdict, that Judge Beverly Kearney would say to them, whoa, wait, get back in there and deliberate some more. It's not that would happen. I'm just joking.
I would also, if it was a different judge, which it wouldn't be, if they had to do this again, I would, depending on the judge, I would give real serious thought to a bench trial.
Yeah, because the evidence just isn't there. There's no reasonable juror could convict based on the evidence that we saw throughout this trial. If they find that John O'Keefe was not hit by a car, Karen Reed's car didn't hit John O'Keefe, they can't convict on any of the charges. Some people have this misconception that there's this lone DUI charge out there by itself, and there isn't one. Nope. Mark, can you confirm?
Yeah, no, they didn't ask for it, which I think was a smart move. But I mean, if you did this in front of a judge, again, assuming you don't think you're going to get screwed just for other reasons other than being judicious, if the ARCA witnesses would conclusively provide reasonable doubt, and any judge following the law would say, I have to acquit, period, end of story. I mean, I
Sure.
don't know why at this point you wouldn't do that going. I mean, I'd give real thought to that. I'm not kidding. Real thought.
Mhm.
And it would streamline the process. If you're worried about, the so-called Canton Mafia, if
Right.
that
People
becomes,
are asking what that means. It's essentially waiving your right to a jury and letting the judge decide instead of letting a jury decide. And in a case like this, you're right. I think it might be a smart play.
Do you
If
have
it
any
if
say
it
on
has
the
to be
judge that you
tried.
get, or does it just go to the next
no,
judge?
you
Like,
would make it very late in the process when I mean, the trial I'm finishing up now, we did a bench trial for strategic reasons. There are times you do it. And I wonder if this ridiculous experience, if it ends up with a hung jury, if that's something I would at least give real serious credence to.
interesting. Bench trial instead of jury. Maybe that's round 2. We'll see on Monday. What do you think's going to happen on Monday? Honestly, if you had to gamble your life on it, what do you think's going to happen at Attorney Bederow and Melanie?
You know what I used to tell my clients? I would say to them, because I'm a civil attorney, right? I'm a civil litigator. Let's say there's $1 million on the table. There's $1 million offer, right? And the other option is wait for the jury to come in and they offer $1 million while the jury's out. I would say, would you walk into a casino and take your $1 million and throw it onto the roulette table and bet on black and spin the wheel? Would you do that? Because if you're willing to do that, then we can wait for the jury to come in because you never, ever know what a jury's going to do. And I would never bet my life on a jury
Yeah,
and I wouldn't take my million. Right?
I wouldn't.
I'm not, well, I wouldn't bet my life on this, but I think it's going to be an acquittal.
Do you think they'll come to a decision or you think they're gonna I don't know. I feel like the way even just the way we look at this case, right? And the hatred that we've seen just from like thinking that possibly Karen Reed did not hit John O'Keefe with her car, that there are people who are so divided on this that if there is one person on there who's saying she is absolutely guilty, I just don't see anybody changing their mind. It's like us trying to change someone's mind who believes Karen Reed is guilty because of her facial expressions, right? By trying to show them the science and the common sense and the logic. It's like there is no getting through to those people. So I just don't know if that's what is happening here. If it's a person whose mind could be changed. I don't know.
I don't know.
I really don't
I
know.
That's what I'm worried about.
But it's so from an evidentiary standpoint, open and shut, that I think the weekend could help. Just like rest, recalibrate the mind, have a nice sleep over the weekend. And, there are, someone told me, I don't know if this is accurate, there's 2 lawyers on the jury, right? We're told.
Oh, is that true?
I think.
I haven't heard that. I heard from Turtle Boy that there was an ex-cop on there.
That too, assuming the
Yes, I heard that person was the 4-person as well.
Okay.
That was one thing I heard. Rumored.
So,
Don't quote me.
assuming the cop is a good cop and like knows how real cops work and is critical of the cops in this case, and assuming there's a couple lawyers and other intelligent people who just are unemotional about, justice for her and justice for the family, as opposed to what are the facts support with the law. I'm telling you, I still feel like at some point they didn't quit. Okay. They wanted to, they went back.
True.
They didn't quit. They actually said, let us try to do it now. They're not there yet. They'll start Monday. I don't know how long they'll go before they say, let me quit and I'll be wrong, which probably will happen now. But I don't know. I mean, part of me says this is such an obvious acquittal case that why lose faith now? They have not yet quit. So until they do, to me, I think they're going to acquit.
I hope
Wouldn't the
so. I mean, it seems obvious to us, but we know all the evidence. We know so much more than they know. So it's like, and I don't really think they've been out for that long, really, when you think about the mountain of evidence and everything
That's
that they
right.
have to go through together. And they sat through 30 days of at least 30, I don't know, 29 or 30 days of testimony together. And now they finally have a chance to talk about every single thing that they've wanted to talk about for 30 days. It's like, there's so much to talk
It'll
about.
be real interesting to me if on Monday morning they ask for evidence, because that will show you that they're back to like, let's solve this. And if they do ask for evidence, what it is, it's kind of surprising in 4 days they've asked for one thing, which as it turns out doesn't exist. So they're everything they're analyzing is kind of in the abstract and just their own opinions and this and that. Usually when you're trying to convince either one person or one person who's adamantly holding out and says, I need to see this, they get the stuff and show this person. Maybe that changes their mind. I don't know. I mean, if you see, for example, if somebody comes in Monday and they get a note and says, I want to see Dr. Was it Rentschler? What's the ARCA guy's name?
Oh, Crash Daddy, Dr.
Yeah.
Rentschler.
Crash Daddy number 2.
Crash Daddy number 2.
If they say, we want to see his cross-examination, that would be very telling, because that's what, oh, you didn't get to see this evidence. And he's going to say, I don't care. Science. If they ask for that, I mean, that tells you they're doing something here. Like, they're getting to a point that may finally get resolved. But worst case scenario, it'll be a hung jury, which sucks for everyone, I suppose, on some level, but it's probably, podcast gold for another year.
Yeah, and not the worst for Karen Reed, because I mean, she won't be in jail. That's the most important part for me.
That's right. That's right.
Beyond the podcast.
That
what about this question here? Because I've heard
No.
we kind of talked about it briefly in the past. Could Bev ever do a direct acquittal?
No. He's the judge of the law. The jury is the judge of the facts. She has no right to basically, unless a motion had been made for, a trial order of dismissal. No, she can't just literally throw it out, because if they're hung, they're hung. Now, of course, if they're hung, you have to know, what are they hung on? They could theoretically, acquit on 2 counts and hang on 1, things like that. You don't know. I mean, at some point they have to address all of them if they don't convict on the top one.
On the jury itself, if they are hung, how directly could they be polled? Like, can the defense and the prosecution ask them, like, what piece of evidence really changed your mind? No, none of that.
Oh,
they
you
can't
mean
ask them?
after? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's over. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course. They can, and the jurors can agree or not agree. They may want to talk. I thought you meant poll them. Like,
Yeah. Does that happen a lot after the trial's over? Do you ever see that happen? Like, is that
talk to
practical?
jurors or
Oh,
poll
Yeah,
them?
where the prosecution or defense goes and talks to them after.
Chase him down the hallway to the elevator. Please talk to me.
Yeah, no, it happens sometimes. I mean, people do it. They also, after there's a verdict, the side that, comes in second, as they say, may ask to poll the jury. Not that that's going to do anything other than just make you feel even worse if you come in second, but they have a right to do it under the theory, maybe 1 in a million chance they, is that your verdict? No. And everything's like, wait a minute, what just happened? I've never seen that happen, obviously, but they can do that.
It's important, though, to talk to a jury after your case is over, right? To see, like, what worked, what didn't work, why, what would you have done differently? Like,
Right.
I mean, maybe it's easier in a civil case to get the jurors to talk to you, but, as a trial lawyer in general, it's always great to talk to the jury after, to ask them what they think worked and what didn't for future.
I agree. I don't know if anyone on either side in this case is going to have the energy or ability
Not a year.
to like do it that same day. If after all that, I
Hypothetically,
if they have the strength to do that, I applaud them, because
Yeah.
I know that would be the one day I would just say, get me the hell out of here.
I'm done.
Yeah. Yep.
A question about the bench trial. They want to know, wouldn't you have concerns about Bev if she was the judge, if it was a bench trial?
Yes and no. I mean, yes, because she's not nice and doesn't like them personally. Now, let's back up a minute. She was a legal aid lawyer for however many years, but she apparently doesn't like these guys. I get it. They're disrupting her little fiefdom. She likes her quiet courtroom, and here come, the big guns from Boston and California, and they're driving her crazy, whatever. But there's a lot of light being shined on this trial, right? I mean, you can't hide your verdict here. And if you assume that she takes herself remotely seriously as a judge, not what she cares about Jackson and Yannetti think about her, but everybody's watching, and she's going to say, I find that there is proof beyond a reasonable doubt, given all the evidence that we've been beating to death today, whether it's the ARCA evidence, all the other stuff. I mean, no judge could ever find there is not reasonable doubt when these 2 experts come in and basically look at her and say, Your Honor, it's not possible. That is per se reasonable doubt. And a judge being judicious without considering emotion and drama and feelings could never give a verdict that would be fair, that would say, I find proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Not even this one.
She had her opportunity to throw the case out after the Commonwealth rested, and she chose not to. So she did have the chance.
She did, but
take-
that evidence
Right.
wasn't in evidence yet.
Hmm,
You know, I mean,
Right.
that motion
Yeah.
will never gets granted because that's also just, you know, whether there's a prima facie case. Whereas, you know, when she's determining the verdict, it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt with all the evidence. And it's legally impossible. Now, jury can do whatever they want. You have to live with it, but that's the risk. They can do whatever they want. But if you follow the law, this is not even a close call. It's that bad.
This
I
question
agree.
came up about the length of the defense. Do you think the defense possibly could have made a mistake by having such a quick, short defense compared to the prosecution?
It's
I
not how
don't.
I phrase it. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, you know, you and I discussed this before, Mark, earlier, but also, and in the days leading up to this, but you know, I'm not going to second guess the defense and what they decided to do with their case because they know this case better than any of us do, and they know, and they've been watching the jury every single day for throughout. I think by the time they started their case, up to 27, 28 days of testimony, they could see whether the jury was getting restless, whether they needed to just cut to the chase, hit all of the really just hammer home the evidence with the experts and with Lucky. And I think that they did that. And I think to have, you know, dragged it on for another couple of weeks would not have served anyone. I mean, and
Yep.
you can see how much trouble the jury is having even now
Yeah.
with the defense
Yeah.
case that really was only
Right.
like what, a day and a half? Their
Yeah.
case?
Oh, yeah.
Pretty
6
much, yeah.
witnesses?
Yeah. Three
I mean, I think-
witnesses and 3 witnesses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even if you add a witness or two, you know, you're not going to second guess them. But if there's, you know, one example is just the tow truck guy. Could they do that? Yeah, I mean, that's probably like a 15-minute witness. Now, there may be reasons they couldn't call him. Maybe he was hiding out, scared, unavailable. You don't know. He seems like, you know, a good one to call. Berkowitz would have been one to call, but, you know, he's sick. Is he hiding? Is he, who knows? But I mean, the reality is they called the 2 ARCA guys who kneecapped the whole case. They called the woman who literally wrote the book on dog bites, literally, to say these look like dog bites. And they called another medical examiner who, you know, knows what he's doing and said that looks like dog bites and these injuries could have been this and that. They already had the DA's own medical examiner who said, I don't know how this happened. It could have been this, your theory could have been theirs. So at that point, it's tough to second guess them and say, we don't want to fall into the trap that, you know, the DA did by just putting the jury to sleep. So I understand their strategy perfectly. The concern that I would have at this point is that somehow, some way, a kook slipped through the jury.
I think
Which-
Berkowitz could have been a real gamble, you know, like I
Yeah.
think Berkowitz could have been a risk. Like he's a
Yep.
loose cannon. Maybe they don't know what he's going to say on the stand. He could get up there and make up all kinds. Like who knows? Like I
Yep.
think that would have been a risk that I, as a defense attorney, would not have wanted to take. Not that, you know,
be a big
like,
risk.
yeah. And
because-
so I don't think it would have been helpful.
Yeah,
And then
no,
the tow truck driver, like who knows? You know, maybe he did take a picture that showed something that we don't know.
yeah, no, it's true. There, I mean, you're trying to minimize risk, not
Right.
increase it. And you know, when you call witnesses, you need to know what you're going to get before you do it. But also, it's tough to blame them that they could have literally in this trial not cross-examined a single witness and not called any witnesses other
Yes.
than the 2 ARCA guys, and
Agreed.
there's still reasonable doubt.
Yep. They could have rested. They could
They
have just,
killed a case
yep.
by themselves. No case. It's over. It legally speaking.
That's why it's so hard to understand what's happening here because they could have rested. And even then, there was so much reasonable doubt. And then they hammer it home with, you know, 4 really solid experts and a guy, Lucky, who knows the Alberts his whole entire life since elementary school, has no skin in this game, has no reason to lie. And in fact, tried to do them a solid by not calling, you know, the cops to have their car removed, the Ford Edge removed. And
Exactly.
it was
Yeah,
a home run. So now even that they're having so much difficulty coming to a verdict after all of that, who knows what's going on in there? I don't
Not
know.
only they haven't proven a car accident. Okay. They haven't proven a homicide of any kind.
No,
Not
they
even
haven't.
murder or manslaughter. I mean, legally, just they haven't caused that or proven that John O'Keefe's death was literally caused by the act of another person, whether it was legally justified, excusable, or not. So I can't fathom for a second what one or more people could possibly be hung up on. And if it's, I hit him, even if you believe that, that doesn't hold up to the science. That's the equivalent of, well, you didn't look at the taillight with the DNA on it. Well, yeah, okay, that sounds impressive, but it doesn't change the scientific problem that we're dealing with. And I think he even said, well, maybe if it had been blood or something, which is what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, but it's just, I mean, even the experts say, well, it's, touch DNA from a guy who lived essentially with the woman whose car it was and probably touched that taillight inadvertently or
all the
purposely
time.
50
Right.
times in the course of a year or whatever. I mean, that's useless to everyone. So I can't even begin to guess what they would legitimately be struggling with.
What someone's asking about, they're worried about a compromise verdict. Is that anything that you'd be worried about?
Normally, but I mean, look, if they think it's a car accident, then yeah, now you start getting into, oh God, well, which one of these car accident crimes is it? But if the issue in front of the jury is it's a car accident or not, if it's no car accident, there's no basis to convict her of anything. So a compromise verdict feels like the worst kind of cop out. I mean, it's accepting the car accident, and then you're going to say, well, I don't think she meant to kill him, but she must have done that. I mean, to me, this is an all or nothing. There's no car accident. There's no crime. I mean, sorry.
There's no compromise verdict here to be had, I don't think.
Right.
If there was just a solo drunk driving charge without the accident involved, without a fatality, then that potentially could be. But without an accident, without her car hitting him, nothing, they can't convict on anything.
Because they're saying the car, based on the DA's theory, doesn't have the damage consistent with a pedestrian strike, and John O'Keefe's body doesn't have damage consistent with being plowed over anywhere by a car. And they were pretty certain about it, like with scientific numbers, explaining the amount of force, the damage that you would get. I mean, they even told you the bumper would come detached and all of this other stuff. It seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah. And if you believe that, the video of her hitting John's car and then leaving the driveway, where to me that taillight looks totally intact, if not just a little piece missing, then you have to believe that those taillight pieces got there some other way, because they were not left at the scene of the crime, the alleged crime. So there's so much for them to go through and agree on that who knows if it's just, the discussion could be all over the place.
And
yeah,
and
taillight, dog bites. Did he go in the house? You don't know what they're talking about in there, and they could be just off on tangents.
And then you go back to every single police officer who went to 34 Fairview Road, and you sit there and you say, why essentially to a man did they say that finding a dead body not dressed appropriately given the conditions, minus a shoe, okay, cocktail glass next to him, not on the road, by the way, on the lawn in snow. So there's nothing that would give an immediate indicia of car strike. He's not on the road. I mean, he's kind of, well, according to Trooper Paul, 20 feet in, whatever it is. And that he was going to Brian Albert's house. That he went with his girlfriend. Why wouldn't you, as a matter of curiosity, not even suspicion, ask the homeowner, did he come in here? Like, what happened? Do you have any idea? They're all telling you it never occurred to us, or we had no reason to do that. And they're doing that old Shakespeare, me don't think you protest too much, me thinks. Like, they're overthinking this. And you can ask all the cops that we all know who are real cops. They would say, never mind accusing Brian Albert and those people of a crime. Do they know what happened to this poor man? Like, help us unpack what happened. And why would you think, like Proctor said, when he's missing a shoe, oh, that's a car accident, rather than something weird, and where's his coat? Now, I know he didn't wear a coat. A lot of people don't wear coats, but they don't know who he is. And they said they had no interest to do it, no reason to do it, because, as Tully said, I wear shorts year round, so it was totally normal to me to take a nap on the lawn in 15 degrees snowy weather with one shoe.
Yeah, but that Timothy Nuttall, he was convinced that he was wearing a puffy jacket,
Puffy, the
and
puffer.
he was so convinced, and he even said, I remember this, he said, "We don't cut off the puffy jackets with trauma shears because they make a mess." So I remember taking off his puffy jacket, and it was hard to get off because his limbs were stiff. So, now there's a doubt about whether he was dressed in a jacket or not. There's just so much of it here that it's just mind-numbing to those of us who know the case so well, how there
Yeah.
could even be any question.
Yep.
Now there's a question here. Which one? Here it is. Nope. No, I'm not losing it, of course. What was that question? Do you have any comments, Mazza, too? You've been a little quiet lately.
Yeah, no, I think the comment here says, I just don't think any scenario where this was caused by a car with no bruises. I agree. That's one of the things I thought of too. It's not only just any kind of damage sustained to the arm. More than likely, if you were backed into by a vehicle and actually were killed or survived, either or, you'd have bruises more than you would cuts and scrapes. You wouldn't have, like the doctor had said, pattern marks. He specifically used the term pattern marks. It wasn't, if you get hit by shattered glass, for example, your wounds are going to be sporadic. They're going to be all over the place. They're going to be inconsistent, right? With this particular, the arm wounds, they're all pattern wounds. They're all consistent marks. Even if they're off by a little bit, those gash marks, the width, the lengths typically could be different in size, but the widths are typically similar, just depending on the angle that the dog would have bit the arm. So that was something in this case for me that I just sit there and say, it's obviously a dog. Now, getting back to this jury for a second, I think a few reasons you could have a jury in this kind of situation right now. Number one is I think you could have one or two jurors that are either skeptics, always believe someone's guilty when they're accused of being guilty. A third potential reason could just be basically that they're overthinkers. They're overthinking it way too much. But for me, if I was a member of that jury right now and I was on the not guilty verdict side, I would basically, one of the questions I would ask of a fellow juror or jurors is basically, what is it going to take you to get to a not guilty verdict? In other words, what is it right now when you're sitting in your chair that is preventing you from getting to the side of the island that we're all on right now? What are you looking at? What is kind of stopping you from getting there? I'd ask basically a sales question.
Mhm.
Why do you not want to buy now? Like salesmen ask. That's the question I would ask. What specifically about it? Once I get those particular answers from that fellow juror, the discussion should then be about that particular juror's concerns, and then you try to bring it home from there. Okay, you have questions about her hitting him with the vehicle and the taillight. Well, taillight is made out of this and that. It doesn't shatter very easily. The arm doesn't have any bruises. It doesn't also have bruises in areas of the body like the ribs. Why weren't any ribs damaged? Why was there no bruises to the rib area and the torso and the hips? So that's kind of how I would, if I was on that jury, that's how I'd approach it. Find out why that juror is not saying not guilty, and then try to identify why, and then kind of go through it with them about what they're going over and try to get everybody to kind of convince them finally to say, oh yes, now I see it your way. And okay, let's go tell them so now we can get out of here and deliver a not guilty verdict and not ruin a factually innocent woman's life.
Hopefully there's a salesperson on there.
Yeah. Right.
And then the person's like, well, I just don't like her facial expressions.
Yeah.
Right?
I just
I mean,
think that
that's
she's
what I've
guilty
been worried
based on her
about.
facial expressions,
Right.
and
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
because she didn't testify, and also because she confessed at the scene. So
Yeah.
therefore, as such, she must be guilty, and you can't change my mind. And
I've been
that's
worried about that for the longest time, like because I feel like so there's been some comments about that. Women sometimes feel like that we've seen women, like my girlfriend, she was a fence sitter. She actually is totally Karen Reed is innocent at this point after she saw all the testimony. But at a certain point, she actually had kind of the same thoughts about Karen, that just the way the demeanor in court. And I think she's really fair, my girlfriend. I don't think she's like, so I think if someone like her, who's pretty moderate on things, can even think that, there's definitely going to be some reactionary people out there who are going to be turned off by it for some reason. I also think like there's certain women that have problems with women who look nice, who have done things professionally, who are smart. She's self-made. Like there's a kind of a jealousy issue sometimes. I think it
it's true.
happens
No,
with
you're
men
right,
too.
though. You're
Yeah.
100% right.
Right.
It's mostly
That's true.
women tearing down other women, You know, it's not, you don't see men out there, talking about like her outfits and, how her outfits are inappropriate for court and her hair and she shouldn't have had highlights done. And, why is she snickering? And the way that the judge called her out in
Awful.
court the other day was abhorrent, I thought. Something funny, Miss Reed. That
Yeah.
was a sound clip that was heard around the world.
Front page of the paper the next day.
Yeah.
Yep.
People could see it. All she had to do was call up the lawyers. Like she likes to have her little side conferences, 50 a day. All she had to do was call them up and look at the lawyers and say, you need to tell her to stop. And they would have, whatever. And no one knows. That was, because she was having a moment, being moody, because she was intimidated and felt embarrassed by what Jackson was doing. And she was projecting her, defense mechanisms and anger and arrogance on the easiest target. And then she turned around at her parents and smiled and she just lost it. And we're done here and stormed off. I mean, that was a tantrum.
Mm-hmm.
That was literally a judge on the live stream having a tantrum. And that was the news story of the day. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
What do you think about this question here? Do you think the jury instructions were clear enough, no matter how much alcohol Karen Reed consumed? If she didn't hit him, vote not guilty.
Drunk or not drunk, right? Well, that's not how jury instructions are given, obviously, about in that kind of detail. But that's a good point in the jury room. Like, focus, people. If she didn't hit him, she didn't hit him. She could have been drunk driving. Okay, maybe, but that's not charged here. That's not a crime. It is an element of the larger crime, or one of them anyway. But that has nothing to do with the impact. It's not that she was driving drunk. That's the issue. The issue is, did she hit him? And if she didn't hit him, then there's no crimes here. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Good questions and good answers we're getting. Another question we got. I just want to let the super chatters know. We have a lot of super chats. I can't read every single one of them. People are already getting mad that I haven't read them, or just sometimes it's not possible. We don't make any promises that we'll read your super chat. What would be included or not included in the cert report to decide guilty, not guilty? How can we know that, right? I mean,
Well, you can't, because there is none. But this was real police work. There would be a police document documenting what was recovered, where, when, and by whom.
Mm-hmm. I had Ed Wallace on my channel today, and he went over this. He's a forensics CSI
There you go.
guru. That's what he does. And he said they should have had pop-up tents there. They should have been sifting the snow through sifters to find the evidence. He said that there should be a log of every single person who came on that scene, what time they arrived and what time they left. And I told him, I said, there was like 3 or 4 like guys on scene that this Lieutenant Kevin O'Hara, who was the head of this crime scene, said he didn't really know who they were. And he was horrified. He's like, you have to have everybody sign in, sign out. You have to know who every single person is. When the evidence is found, it is photographed, it is documented. There are markers put. There should have been a chalk outline made of that. He's like, he was horrified. And there would have been a log of every single piece of evidence that was found, where it was found, measurements. There was nothing.
No, they had none of that. And of course, they didn't even secure the crime scene. So already it's bogus. But then when they do this search at night, okay.
Well, that's the CERT team. Yeah, that is the CERT team. When they came at like 5:41, they were assembled, I think. Yeah.
And they kind of claim that they weren't really sifting, but they had their little methodology inch by inch. So they find some pieces at night. Why don't they come the next morning? And instead of, again, the melting snow raising through the hand of God, all the larger pieces day after day, why didn't those guys come back in the freaking daylight? I mean, you don't have to be like CSI guru to figure that one out, maybe.
They offered to come back, and they didn't call them.
Why not videotape some of the search to show you what they're doing? They have their documentation of this is so pathetic. There's no crime scene. There's no chain of custody. Nobody knows, even when Proctor was alone with the vehicle, the timing is off. The camera from the Sally port when he was with the vehicle is off. how can anyone possibly credit any of this taillight nonsense?
Maybe that's
How
what they wanted to know. Like, what time were these pieces found compared to what time the car made it into the Sally port? And, somebody was trying to prove to somebody else in the jury room that here's how they could have been planted. And here's why. Let's get that report, because that report is going to show where these pieces were found and at what time. But
and none of the Canton police from the first day when the snow was much less, they found nothing. Now,
No.
I'm not suggesting they're like really great investigators. I mean, look at them. They are what they are. But the
So
reality is nobody doubts that when the first round of search occurred from the Canton guys at 6 a.m, whatever it was, they're not planting evidence. They're not doing anything other than, we have a dead guy. What's going on? We'll do the best we can and then we'll bail. But there was much less snow. They didn't find anything. The expert CERT team found tiny little pieces. And then over the course of 2 weeks, Berkowitz, Proctor, and Buchanan, the guys that were in the Sally port apparating back and forth on the inverted video, are the ones who just drove by and evidence revealed itself. And everyone's looking at each other in the jury room or somebody and saying, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And
No.
by the way, the taillight could not have cracked, so say the engineers. Except for Trooper Paul. He's the guy who just
Associate's degree. Oh, poor
associate's
Trooper
degree in
Paul.
what? I mean,
I don't even know. What was it? Probably history, like me or something.
hey, I have a degree in history.
I have a BA in history. That's my thing.
So do I.
It's really helped me do the talk show thing. The walking dogs too. That's the other thing. Yeah, we've gotten a lot of questions. This is some of the questions I just got to tell the people too. Sometimes they're repeats. We've answered them a million times, so I don't post them. And sometimes they're salacious or rumor fed. So it's like, this is one of those ones on the borderline. We've already kind of broached the KP thing. I almost want to stay away from KP, but I'll bring it up because she does predict things. She predicted Turtle Boy is going to be arrested, and then Turtle Boy got arrested. She basically said last week that there was going to be a mistrial. Then they all show up today. Do you think that we're being conspiracy theorists thinking like that, or do you think that we should even care what she's saying? What do you think, expert panel?
I don't know anything about it. I have
Yeah.
no input on that whatsoever.
Me neither.
I don't even know.
It sounds tinfoil hat.
Yeah. Without evidence. I mean,
Yeah.
if there's evidence of it, look, there are times where people do things. I mean, look, when a lot of people first heard the defense in this case was going to be that taillight was, planted in this. Yeah, it sounds a little fakakta. It does. But at this point, I totally believe it. And I don't wear tinfoil hats.
Yeah,
Right.
I think you got to be backbone by evidence. That's the key.
Right. You
We
got
don't
to
have
be
any evidence on this
but
little
if the
rumor down
evidence
here.
supports it, fine. But this, I mean, there's
Yeah.
no evidence of it.
She could have predicted something correctly. Who knows? Here's one for Mark and Melanie. Mark and Melanie, I heard you both say earlier that the jurors could have testimony read back if they had questions. Bev never told them that. Was that an oversight from Bev not to tell them?
I thought that she didn't tell them that because I was thinking back on that. I didn't go back and listen to her, jury instructions again, but I don't remember her telling that. And that's just something that in New York is always part of it, right? And
yeah.
so if they don't know that they can ask for that, that is an issue. But again, Massachusetts has such strange rules that I don't really know. Like we were talking earlier about how the judge here, at least in New York, would never ask to pull the jury if they feel like they can't make a decision. She wouldn't want to know the split, or they can't ask for the split. And then I heard Larry, DUI guy, earlier yelling about why didn't she ask them? How many against how many? Why didn't she ask them? So, and he's in, I think, Kentucky. So I don't know if different jurisdictions have different rules on that. And so I don't know if that is something that she could ask them in Massachusetts, quite honestly. So Mark, I'll defer to you on that. But
well, I missed
real quick. I'm sorry, Mike. Turtle Boy wants to join. I'm going to send him a link right now. Is that okay?
I got to ask our guests. I mean, that's the key.
Okay. Sorry about that.
I want to make
No
sure
problem with
everyone's
that.
comfortable.
Yeah,
it's fine.
All right. I'll send it to you, Turtle Boy.
I missed the jury instructions, before deliberation because I was in court myself. But my jaw is on the ground if you're telling me that in the jury instructions, the judge never told the jury that, your review of the evidence controls, obviously, but if you have any questions or there's a disagreement amongst jurors, that you can ask for readback, and what you would be instructed, certainly as Melanie knows, in New York, this is in every single jury instruction ever. They would say, if you do want readback, I need certain things. I need to know what witness, whether you want direct and cross, and do you want the whole thing, or do you want related to a certain topic? And if it's related to a certain topic, and we were talking about this earlier, on Melanie, on your show,
Mm-hmm.
it's annoying for lawyers because you have to go back with the court reporter and go through the transcript and agree that, like, this question and answer is right, and then do we agree, whatever. But if the jury's not told that, and if, for example, they don't know that they could have Dr. Wolf or Dr. Rentschler's testimony read back, I mean, that could be the difference between a hung jury and an acquittal. So I don't know what she's doing.
She
But-
did say, though, in the instructions, she said, you will not be given any transcripts of any testimony, but you will be given the exhibits. And there was like 657 exhibits.
Right. Okay.
So
but
they're not getting transcripts, but there was
They-
no specific instruction about if you would like a readback of testimony, you can have
Right.
it. So it was odd to me.
No, I don't like that. As far as not asking the jurors, where you split, I got to be honest with you, that's crazy. I've never heard of anything like that. Maybe that's a Kentucky thing. I don't know. I mean,
Oh, the split, yeah.
the idea that a judge would literally ask a jury, "Where are you?"
Hmm.
That's, first of all, one of the reasons you wouldn't do that is you're going to create an appellate issue if it turns out, okay, we're 11-1, and then all of a sudden, over the objection of, suppose it's 11-1 to convict in a case, okay, and then the question is, jury says they're hopelessly, they don't want to work anymore. Should I read them a charge to get back to work? Okay, if it's 11-1 to convict, and you know that, and you're the defense attorney, you're going to scream up and down and say, no, we're done, go home, case over. And if she gives that charge, and then they come back an hour later guilty, that conviction is going to get reversed, or potentially reversed, because the argument is going to be that the case should have been, a mistrial, and the judge leaned on this one juror who essentially was shamed, publicly, if you will. I've never heard of a situation where anyone would have a right to, and you don't have a right to know.
Well,
whatever.
here's the thing. Defense Diaries is in the chat saying she's going to need to know the split. And Defense Diaries, Bob Mott is in Chicago area.
I've never heard of this.
Huh.
Wow. I don't know why the judge would need to know the split. I mean, in other words, she ought to be guided to give the charge, whether it's appropriate or not. And I think what is she going to do if it's 11-1 to convict? Is she going to say, well, in that case, I better not do it because I don't want to pressure one person that could do that? I mean, to me, you're doing it or you don't. But again, could be a New York thing where, Melanie, you and I just don't.
Mhm.
It
Different rules.
But I mean, when I heard someone suggest that today, to me, that was like, what? Like,
Right. It just doesn't happen.
right. That sounded crazy. But if they do it elsewhere, then that answers that. Okay. We'll stay in our New York lane on this one, I guess.
Exactly.
we maybe
somebody
we're
says
the,
no
maybe
split
we're the
question.
crazy ones on this.
No split
It's great.
questions in Colorado either. And that's funny because that's where I went to law school. So
Mhm.
that's the way I learned it. And that's the way I practiced it. So
That just strikes me as creating real potential problems on appeal if the charge is given and a defendant argues it pushed a jury over the edge when the judge should not have given the charge. But in any event,
Here's another attorney in the chat, Shannon McMahon. She's a former prosecutor, ran for DA in Bristol County. She almost won that race against an incumbent. She says, I've never seen her read back in mass.
that's crazy.
how are they? I mean, what if they don't remember testimony? Or what if they have a dispute? I mean, like, if people are taking notes, what if two jurors miss a word or have a disagreement? The only way to square that is if ask the judge, we need readback.
Yeah.
And in a trial like this, when you have 70 something witnesses over the course of 2 months, honestly, you mentioned all these cops from the first part of the trial. Realistically, do you remember what the hell they said or who was with them and what day?
No.
Way.
No.
It was like 3 months ago. No, 2 months ago. I mean, it's a while back.
Right. And we've been talking about this case like every day for 30
Exactly.
days. And we don't remember exactly who testified about the taillight exploding in the Sallyport.
Now it's all coming back to me watching this trial that this really is crazy land.
Mm.
Have you noticed, Melanie, that when they were doing cross-examinations and they wanted to impeach witnesses from what they said earlier in the trial, nobody, not even including the real lawyers, which means they probably didn't have daily copy, because nobody said, when they were impeaching them about prior testimony, do you remember being asked the following question and giving the following answer on, da 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 da? It was very generalized, like even Lally with the Boston Globe nonsense.
Right.
Didn't you say this yesterday? And he was kind of like guessing by memory and he screwed it up.
Right.
They don't have daily copy, do they?
No.
I don't think so. But is it because she's talking into that, what I call athletic supporter, and not typing into a machine where she can just go back to the tape? And like, because of the same thing where I would say, if the juror was like, oh, can you rephrase that? Or can you repeat the question? I would always say in court, can you read it back? Right. And a court reporter would read it back. You wouldn't have to be like, oh, I don't remember what I just asked you. Let me see if I can remember. Because that happened a couple of times during this trial on both sides.
2 days ago, and I'm like, I don't remember. Can you read it back? And and you're like, wow, that was a terrible question, and you're embarrassed because it sounds like an idiot, and you rephrase it. But wow, if they're saying that they don't get read back in Massachusetts, obviously I'll defer to the Massachusetts people, but that can't be.
It is, I believe that is the way it is. Yeah.
That's so the jury should be ignorant.
Yeah.
What if they give a verdict based on a misinterpretation of what the testimony is?
Appeal, I guess. I don't know.
Appeal what?
I know.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's the beauty too of, these trials being broadcast on YouTube, is that the attorneys at night don't have to pay for a daily, right? They can go home and watch it on YouTube and kind of just write down what they hear, but it's not an official court record, but at least they can refresh their recollection of what the testimony was in court that day by just watching it on YouTube, the court TV feed or whatever. And you don't have to pay for it because daily transcripts are really expensive.
A transcript though also gives you the ability to refresh recollection. How are you doing that if you don't have, you're not going to refresh your recollection by saying, I saw on YouTube last night. Watch it.
Didn't you say this? But yeah, I heard it on Young Jerks.
Or TV. Yeah.
This no readback thing. I'm stunned. That can't be. What does a jury do if they don't know what the evidence is?
That sounds like Massachusetts though, Mark, doesn't it?
It does, but it also, Massachusetts is supposed to be a very
we're supposed to be progressive and smart, but our government is like 1920s. I don't know what to tell you. It's true. Look at the MBTA, right?
Yeah, you need whether you're having Turtle Boy or not. You need in this chat right now.
Ooh.
Madam Court Reporter.
Oh, yeah, get her up here.
We need some insight.
Or Auntie Deb playing Madam Court Reporter.
or the very funny Twitter account.
Turtle Boy hasn't showed up yet. I've been looking for him. I haven't seen him. I don't know. He's probably got like 5 other shows to do. Every time he says he's coming up, it ends up like, oh, I have to do this other show.
I'm going to find out about this readback. I'm going to ask around.
Yeah.
Lawyers.
Yeah.
I see some Massachusetts attorneys in the chat, and they're like, no, we don't do that here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I can put you in touch with Shannon too. Yeah.
What do they do when the jury is having an argument about, I don't remember what the evidence is?
We're going to have to get some mass lawyers up here with you, Mark, and
they don't
Melanie
take notes in every case, and even then, what if they have a disagreement and, people write different things, pay attention at different speeds.
And we were there. We were in the courtroom the day that the woman from
Jessica
that was the day they shut off the cameras in the courtroom in the morning. What was her name?
Jessica Hyde.
Jessica Hyde, right? And who else testified that day? Another expert.
We saw Trooper Paul.
But it was only direct.
We saw the voir dire of him.
Yeah, but a lot of the jurors were not taking notes that day. Do you remember?
Yeah.
So
because they were doing
some days they take them, some days they don't.
They were You
Even
They
when
could
I
be
was
relying on the
note-taking.
fact that maybe if we don't remember, they'll read it back to us because
Right,
we
even
see
when
that
I
on
was note
TV.
taking, I had to rewind the YouTube clip a couple
Oh,
times
yeah.
just to kind of double check words and things
Definitely.
and certain
Anytime
things.
I
And yeah,
transcribe,
and they
even
had
with
none of that.
the
Yeah.
even with the Google something, you
Listen.
know how you have the Google Translate there on the bottom or whatever captions.
All,
Mhm.
I still have to go back. It's so
all
like
the
Yeah.
Melanie, when we went, next to me was like the young DAs watching, watching how real trial work. They were taking notes, but they weren't exactly. They were doodling. I mean, these are
funny.
like young lawyers who were trying to learn something. Were as bored out of their minds as we were.
Oh, that is funny.
Yeah, they were like just literally. It's. I don't know what they do though in these situations.
What's up, Turtle Boy?
Hi.
Aidan?
Going.
Good.
What's up?
What's going on, Aidan?
You were at court today?
Yeah, it was court. Yeah, it's on the atmosphere there is just I can't describe it. Maz has seen it, right? Mike, you were there the other day.
Yeah,
Like you
I've been
saw
there
it.
a couple
It's just
times.
like it's a powder keg of
Yep.
people ready to explode with joy.
Yep.
It's so positive there, like it's crazy. And some counter protesters showed up today, and watching the videos of how people reacted was just amazing. Everybody's turned their backs to them. Nobody interacted with them. It was great. It was beautiful.
Was there only like 4 of them that showed up with signs like Karen Reed is guilty? Because I saw, I think you posted something like maybe one picture or something. It looked like there were only 4 people that showed
Yeah,
up.
there's like
So
4 or 5, and they all have one thing in common. And it's not really a hatred of Karen Reed. It's just me. Every single one of them, there's some backstory that I won't bore you with
Yep.
me. And it's just because I've taken the position that Karen Reed is innocent, they defaulted to Karen Reed is guilty. And it's sick. So like I want to compliment everybody who just turned their back to them and didn't give them the attention they so desperately craved. Because they shouldn't be the story today. It happened about like an hour after the announcement about the hung jury, which is like huge news. Like that should have been dominating the news cycle. Instead, it's these idiots showing up, and that was unfortunately, took over. But
Strange timing.
yeah, and it's like I don't even want to give them. Like I would get into the Gretchen Voss part of it, but it's like I don't even want to talk about these idiots because I'm more interested in. I don't know. I don't know about you guys. I'm just. What do you think? Honest question. Do you think it's going to be a hung jury?
No,
No.
I don't. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at this point. But I think that it was encouraging that despite given the early exit option, they wanted to stick around, which tells me speculatively that it's probably 10-2, 11-1 in the right direction, and they're trying, and we'll see.
Has to be 11-1. What? How else? Because you're right. Like the 35, 40 minutes. Maybe we can end this thing by then.
Early start of the weekend,
Gotta be
unless
one person. Gotta
You
be
think
one person.
yeah, I think so. I mean, you may have a kook who is a science rejecter that needs more work.
And I can't help but look at them all. And you guys have all seen the jury, and like, and it's just looking at them and it's like I can't like. I mean, I have my theories, but I could be dead wrong. It's just like you never know who these people are, what's going through their head. All I know is when it comes to this case, I've never seen anything like it where people are just so stubborn with it. Like you could show them anything and they're just like, nope, she did it. I hit him. I
that's
hit
the
him.
thing, right? So if there's one person like that, right, who's like, I hate the way she looks, I hate her facial expression, she's guilty, burn the witch. Are the 11 other people going to be able to change that one person's mind? That's what
That's a
worries
tough
me.
part. Yeah.
But maybe they go home over the weekend and they're not supposed to talk about it with anybody, but maybe somebody smacks some sense into them and is like, what are you, crazy? Like there's no science. Physics doesn't lie, dude. Like get a hold of it.
Right.
Grip on yourself.
Why do you want to keep going back to Norfolk County? Like, don't you want to move on with your life? You've been doing this for 10 weeks. Do you hate your job that much? That you want to keep going to the free Jimmy John's every day? Is it worth it?
Is that what they're feeding them? They're not calling D&E Pizza to deliver some, mediocre chicken parm for lunch or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I don't know. I think it's 50-50 at this point. It's like because if they can't convince whoever this person is by now, I don't know if they ever will.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting that Lally was like, no, go back, come up with a verdict. And Yannetti was like, nah, I think they're good. I think they've reached. This is it. They gave it their best shot. He seemed so willing to take a mistrial, and I honestly think that Lally was just thinking in his head like, oh wow, we got 1 or 2 that actually believe us. Yeah, we're never gonna find another jury. Like, hey, let's go, get back in there.
I could totally understand why he would want that. And at the same token, if I think he'd rather have an acquittal today than a conviction a week from now. Not that he would get that, or even a hung jury. Look, he wants to check out, be done. It's
Smoke some
you
cigarettes.
Yeah, a couple of boxes of Marlboro Reds, as we said, ought to do the trick.
I think I'm
Alcohol.
going with Camel, no filters, but Marlboro Reds is probably a good guess because we got to throw one more brand into this trial because we haven't had enough brand product placement.
They know that. I mean, an acquittal is better for them than a hung jury. Politically, logistically, nothing could be worse for the Morrissey goons than a hung jury. That creates
You
so much trouble for them.
You think that's worse than an acquittal?
Yeah, because
them-
they have a decision to make at that
Yes,
point. And
whether
whatever
they have
decision they
tried.
make, whether
Yes.
to retry or
They
not to
have-
retry, they're going to get so much hate either way.
And what do you do with Proctor? Are you now going to put him back on? Why isn't he fired? Are you going to use him as a witness? Or
He might be fired by then. I mean, I think there's a good
How-
chance if this
maybe.
goes 6 months from now. Like there's so
Okay.
much that could happen in the next 6 months that Lally can't take that chance.
if you're, I mean, do you recall Buchanan? And if you're his lawyer, do you want him to testify again? He's got issues in light of his testimony here. I think he's got trouble. I think a lot of these guys have trouble. Are the feds going to give them more materials? Are they going to do something? Yeah. And I don't think they want to have another lengthy trial. They're never going to win. They're never going to convict her ever. So they're just kicking the can down the road for what?
You think they know that? Do you think? I mean, I think
Yes.
like,
Yes. No. When they got the ARCA report, they know it. And that's the scandal, but they're still doing it. Of course they know it.
They got the ARCA report in like February.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And they don't care. And they're still going. So something's wrong here.
It's an ego thing from Marcy, don't you think? It's an ego thing. He's not going to drop it.
I don't know if it's an ego thing or
And
it's
a Feds thing. I think
or
it's a
it's a-
Feds thing.
a
or a-
personal conflict thing where, let's keep it. The longer I keep this going, the more they can't do anything. I don't
The
know.
more I can find out what they know.
Or it's-
Exactly. From the
There
Feds.
isn't another prosecutor in the world who would bring this case when they saw the ARCA report because there's no car accident, there's no case. Literally, can't happen. And they're doing it.
And what's their response to the ARCA guys? I need
Nothing.
to know, like,
Trooper
what-
Paul.
Trooper
you're-
Paul.
Yeah.
No, like you're biased. Is that what he is?
We got
Like,
Trooper Paul here.
you joined a Facebook group. Is that or their response?
No,
Yeah,
they're,
Dr.
I
Wolf's
think
wife.
they're claiming they didn't see any of the other materials like the taillight and whatever.
Oh, right. They
But-
asked him, did you see the DNA? Did you
Yeah.
read about the DNA on the taillight? No, I don't give a shit. Because
Doesn't
Mhm.
change science.
yeah.
It's a scientific formula. All it does is prove the taillight is planted. I mean, it doesn't help them. It hurts them, that cross-examination, I think.
There's a question that came in about the ARCA guys in the defense. Should the defense have paid to add a video animation to the testimony? I think that would have helped at all.
I think that's fair. I mean, I would have loved to see a visual of like how they think this happened. Like, please, like do it. Like at least Plevin tried. At least he gave it a shot. You know, like
Except it was a
Tried
martini
his best.
glass. Wasn't it a martini glass? I
Except
can't
it
believe
was
Court
a,
TV.
Wrong
Let's talk
side
about
of the
Court
car.
TV playing that on the air.
I
Like,
couldn't believe
Yeah.
that.
what were they thinking?
That
And
was
the wrong
crazy.
side of the car. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how bad it was.
What did
It
he have? He
wasn't
had
even
like
the
a
right
Toyota
taillight.
Prius in his example or something.
I mean, are they that starved for content that they really
Yes.
played
Yes.
that video on the
Yeah.
air?
Well, they needed somebody to play the role of the de facto Karen Reed is guilty. And it's not easy to find intelligent people to play that role because it's such a losing battle. And they're like, this guy's got a YouTube channel. Whatever.
Isn't he
He's
on
coming
every
up.
night,
He's
every
coming
single
up.
night?
He
Yeah.
plays the useful idiot pretty well, though. I mean, he's
I still haven't seen the summation. He did
Truth.
the
A lot.
mock
you've
summation.
got to dedicate the 17 minutes of your life, watch the summation, and just visualize
I'm
the
doing that this
wrinkles
weekend.
on
I
his shirt
am.
coming out of the attic hamper, and then he like stares at you, and then he sums up before the defense witnesses testify, and it's like, dude, someone's got to tell you how a trial works. I know we're all grifters and real estate lawyers, but defense is allowed to play in the sandbox too before the lawyers sum up. It's
Not just that. You actually believe that Karen's guilty. That's his line. You guys know Karen's guilty. You're just doing this because you're
Yeah. What?
Right.
money to be made.
stop grifting.
Any 10 drugs in the bar.
Any 10
Did
drunks-
he bring that one up in the summation, the fake summation?
No,
Oh.
no, but you just dedicate those 17 minutes of your life. It's worth it. And then you can flush it out. Have a good laugh and flush it out.
Someone says useful idiot here.
Yeah.
The martini glass.
A lot of good Mark ones. Yeah, the martini glass.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but
The audience is loving this panel. They're loving this grouping. Thank you all, Turtle Boy, Melanie Little, Attorney Bederow, and always Mazza Media being here. Thank you so much tonight.
Got it.
What's not to love?
No, I mean, the
know.
whole thing about the McAlberts
What's
not
not
to
to
a
love?
jury member, it's like, I mean, that's a little much. They
Yeah.
can't control who get, and that's when we start losing. That's when we kind of start sounding like conspiracy theorists, when we start saying stuff like that.
Right.
True.
I mean, there are actual people that have no ties to this case that actually fall on both sides of the fence, you know,
Yeah, I mean, look at any of these
who are not being
polls.
paid by anyone to say
Yeah, look
things like
at these
that.
polls on Court TV and stuff. It's like 90-10. So
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
odds are you're going to get one on any
That's right.
given jury.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Exactly. That's been
Yeah.
my theory as well. You look at the people out there that have been like they've joined the groups out there. That there's thousands of us, and then there's this small group of people, and that's 9 out of 10. 90 out of 100 easily. So it's just.
I
that
just,
sample
whoever
size
that
adds up.
one person is on the jury, I just find it impossible to believe that they're not seeing all the uproar in the community over this, and that they have not gone online and they have not seen comments. Because I think that fuels a lot of the people who say Karen Read is guilty, is they just see this huge push for Karen Read, and it just makes them want to push back harder and say, no, I'm going to stick to my guns here.
Right.
I don't know.
Stubborn,
Are they busing?
overthinking type. Yeah.
Are they busing the jury in and like bringing them
No.
through a back door, or are they
wait, they
seeing
bring
all
them
of
back.
the
Yeah.
supporters out there?
No, they bust them in. Remember the whole
They
purpose of the free speech zone, because
yeah,
they don't
so
want to see
can't
them.
be in- yeah.
Well, they
Mhm.
bust them in anyway. So they
And so they go away where they're not coming across. They don't see what's going on outside the courthouse.
They have
I
to
think
on
they have to hear it,
has to
though.
Right.
see it on the way out. I mean, it's
Yeah.
impossible to miss.
Right. That's what I'm
There's no
saying.
room
So they're
on the
seeing it
phone.
anyway.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's come on, that a couple of them aren't going home and Googling. Like, no one's going to find out what you go. I mean, you can be like Jennifer McCabe, just delete the Google search and then call in Ian Whiffen and say, I didn't actually search for that. These people can go online and they can look for this stuff. I find it impossible to believe that nobody's looking into this. They should have
I agree with
sequestered
that.
the jury. They should have sequestered the jury. And
If
I
they're
agree.
going
Yep.
out in the weekend, it's impossible. Even if they're not trying to look, that somebody says, "Oh, that's my friend. They're on that jury." It's just impossible. That
If
it's
they
not.
went to Gillette Stadium over any weekend that they've been on this jury, they would have seen the Free Karen Read billboard right then and there. They would have seen it. There's no way
driven
around.
on Route 1 in general. That's a busy road,
Yeah.
man. That connects most.
Right.
It goes all the way through Norfolk County. There's a million
Free
reasons
Karen
to
Read
go on
signs
Route
in
1.
people's front yards. It's all over the place. There's no way to get around it. That's so. I think it's probably a juror or two that are probably stuck on one or two facts, and the rest of the jury is just kind of chisel away at it and just get them to think around that and get through it. And hopefully that's it. So.
This is where I go back to this point about not having Read back. I mean, if they're debating over the car accident, the most obvious thing for a sane juror to say would be, "Tell you what, let's get Dr. Rent, just hear me out. Let's get Read back on this, listen to it, and then let's talk about this." And that would be it. If you heard that testimony, or even Dr. Wolf, more Rentschler than Wolf, I think, actually, to tell you the truth, but either one of them or both of them, if somebody had a problem with the science and they're not being obstinate for the sake of being obstinate, that they in their mind have a serious reason to doubt it, that would most likely do it. And if that's not even a possibility, then I don't know what the hell they're doing in that kind of court system. That makes no sense to me at all. And it could impact an outcome of a murder trial. That's terrible.
We have a question that keeps coming up. Mark's put it down a lot of times. It was directed to Turtle Boy, so I want to have him answer it. Any word on the street that the McAlberts got to a jury member?
Oh, I just addressed this. I think that's the kind of stuff that we should stay away from, because it makes us sound like conspiracy theorists. I think it's a little. I mean, what are they went into the jury pit, like they knew who was going to be called that day, and they're like, keep in mind the defense had to agree to these people. Like they agreed to all these jurors.
Right. Didn't they run background checks on all of them too, or criminal background checks
sure.
on the
Karen
jury
was
once they were
most-
picked?
Yeah, Corey's. Yeah, Corey offense.
Karen Read is one of the most relentless, thorough people I've ever talked to in my life. Like, there is no way she did not sit there at the table. She was actively participating in the jury selection. There's no way that she would, if one of those people was a McAlbert plant, she would know.
Awesome.
Great point.
Good point. Yeah, she would know. I have confidence in that too. Like she would know. I want to put that to rest because people keep bringing it up over and over and over again. Police procedures expert, if retried, they will torch Mass State Police. My dad is 23-year expert and assessed other law enforcement agencies throughout CLEA, and he's horrified. Have you heard a lot? I imagine you have, Turtle Boy, from law enforcement. Have you heard from law enforcement?
It's and I heard Melanie, I think, say this earlier on one of her streams about that most law enforcement she speaks to is disgusted by this, the way it's handled.
Oh, yeah.
I find that most local law, like my local police department, I've talked to many cops about this here. They all agree it's like this is messed up. But the state police, that's the one entity that's just rotten to the core. Because if you were to poll most state troopers in this state, the de facto opinion is that Karen Reed is guilty. Like more than 50% believe that.
Really?
It's just odd.
Do you think they really believe that, or do you think they're just saying that because
I think they just back the blue? I think they just back, like they have a culture where they back each other no matter what. Like Nicholas Garino and Joseph Paul have no reason to cover for the McAlberts, none. But they do have a reason to cover for Michael Proctor. Like it's like their pride. Like Michael Proctor's one of us, and you're not going to say bad things about Michael Proctor. We are going to back up Michael Proctor, no matter how ridiculous it sounds. I mean, I just disproved last week this ridiculous Apple Health data nonsense when they said that a dip in the street is what caused him to go up and down 3 flights of stairs. That is the strongest piece of evidence putting John O'Keefe in that house. And he didn't even go on the street. He said he did it on Google Earth. So I'd never been on that street. So I want to see this gigantic hill, and I want to see if it causes my phone. So we brought 3 iPhones with us, a 12, a 13, and a 15, tested all of them. It's the flattest street in America. And not one of the phones showed anything about going up and down stairs. And so why is Nicholas Garino saying this? Like, he has no reason to cover for Brian Albert. It's just pride. It's like a state police thing where they just de facto have to be like, no, we're pushing back on you, because an attack on Michael Proctor is an attack on the entire Massachusetts State Police. That's how they view it.
Yeah, I think the state police are acting that way because the guys in trouble in this case are literally the state police. I agree. It's all just covering their own rear ends internally in their own department. But every cop I've spoken to, active duty, retired, whatever, and I know a million of them just from my own experience, I've yet to hear one who does not think that this is anything other than a ginormous shit show, scandal, fiasco.
Yeah, I've been hearing from town cops, not any state police, but they all agree the same. I haven't heard from any state police, so it's interesting to hear Aidan say that about the state police. I totally believe it. That most of them back the blue. They stick there.
I have a friend who's in the state police, and like he knows Karen Reed's innocent. He told me that, but he's the one that told me that like most guys around the barracks, like it's the de facto opinion that Karen Reed's guilty. Like, and everybody, it's just like I'm in a minority basically, so I don't say anything. Like,
I can see that totally happening. Here's another question about police. Where is the Boston police in all this? They just being silent. What do you think?
Carl can't be in the courthouse, so because he hit Karen Reed. Like, I mean, that's an underreported story, huh?
Yeah. How come they never report on the crap that they do? Like, they never report that. The Boston Globe hasn't done any of that kind of coverage at all.
Yeah. And by the way, you guys know Sergeant Hardo. Like, so people who go every day, there's like a whole cast of characters that we are with every day for the last 10 weeks. And Sergeant Hardo is one of them. He's actually one of them that arrested me. He was in my kitchen. And he's got a really booming voice, and nobody likes him. Everybody likes Lieutenant Murph because he's funny and personable and gets along. So today I walked out, and they go right now instead of left out the stairs when you go at the bottom of the stairs. And so I went right to get ahead of him, and I was going to ask David Yannetti a question on his way out, because that's what I like to do, ask a question. And so I start to question David Yannetti, and then all of a sudden I hear Sergeant Hardo yell at me, "You are not allowed over here." And he said, "I'm going to arrest you." And when you're out on bail, you're like, you hear that word, you're like, okay, you start shaking your pants.
Good.
So I'm like, I am so sorry. I apologize to him and everything. It's like, dude, I didn't know. I can't ask a question. It's a very tense atmosphere there.
Yeah.
Saw dozens of people today get pulled over for honking and ticketed.
Mhm.
Dozens.
That's so
It's
crazy.
It is, yeah. They're changing the rules every day too. Like every time like 2 weeks ago when I went there compared to 5 days ago, whatever it was now, I could stand outside the courthouse and record. Now all of a sudden, like, if you don't get a credentialed media pass, get the hell out
Yeah,
of
they're
here.
kicking us off the
Yeah.
sidewalk. Remember we saw you the other day, Turtle Boy,
Yeah.
right there? Right after that, the cops
Yep.
attacked Mazza and me and basically kicked us down the street. Like I
Oh,
couldn't
yeah.
even.
They don't let you loiter. Like if they see you
No.
standing around for too long, get it. You got to get out of here.
Yep.
It's crazy, man. Like,
Wild.
tensions are high, you know. But I have met a lot of cool people in this. Like I love Sue O'Connell now. Like
Yeah,
Sue,
she's
I did
great.
not like Sue O'Connell in this. We did not have the same political affiliations
Yeah.
prior to this. I mostly criticized her. Same with you, Mike, actually.
Yeah.
And like, but now I like she is funny.
She's
Like
good.
she's witty. She's cool.
She is a good egg. I
She's
like
cool
Sue.
lesbian aunt. She's very cool. And
Though the way she claps back too, she'll stick up for herself.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ted
she's
DeAngelo,
kind of like
Christina Rex.
snarky and digs, you
Yeah.
know, on her Twitter to these goons. She like
Yeah.
very subtly just
She
twists
called
it.
Grant's
right in-
mom. She
Yeah.
called his mom. That's
right.
awesome.
That's so
Why do
good.
you think?
Grant.
Why do you think they didn't call Gretchen Voss? I mean, they made all those motions to try and get her notes and everything, right? And
Yeah,
her
good point.
her outtakes and stuff from that Boston Magazine article. Why did they not call Gretchen Voss?
She seemed like a more worthwhile witness than Kurt Roberts, who I think we should have a vote at the end of this, the dumbest 10 witnesses that the Commonwealth called. It would have to start with him. He came into the freaking bar for 5 minutes and ordered a Bud Light, and that was his testimony. At least Gretchen Voss spoke to Karen Reed. Like,
Right.
you know?
But he did tell us that if he didn't plow the driveway, he didn't shovel the driveway, Carrie would come home in a mood. So that was worth the testimony alone.
Oh,
the
great.
mood of Carrie.
Is that the one who told us about Sully's kids, or is that one of the other ones?
And he couldn't stay late. That's why Karen had to come pick him up because he had to
Right.
be
Oh, right.
home by like
You
6
know-
o'clock or something.
You know who's been outside the last 2 days there? Really nice guy, the Kolakethis guy, Nick Kolakethis
Oh
from
yeah,
the Waterfall Bar, who testified
favorite.
that,
him and his wife.
that
I
his
like
wife
him.
told him, like, why can't you be
Yeah.
Why can't
He
you be
is
like
the nicest guy,
He
and he's
seems
out
like a
there.
good guy.
Like, you could tell just from his testimony, he was Team Karen, and which was great to see. And I can't believe they called him. He was another one whose testimony helped Karen Reed. Another one out there is Tom Beatty has been there for 3 days in a row now. His daughter was there the first day. Tom's daughter has been relentlessly harassed by the McAlberts for not getting on board. She was, in with the cool kids prior to this, but because she told the truth, she's no longer welcome there. And they call us bullies, So it's been interesting.
It is strange that they didn't call some of these people out. Like the defense, I'm surprised they didn't call the Beatty family. I think they might know something too.
Yeah, I'd like to look at that list again. I heard you guys talking about that before, about like which people do you think they would call again if they could? And we don't want to second guess them. I'm sure everything's fine. But I don't think there's anybody you could have called that's going to change whoever this rogue juror's opinion is. But there was some one I asked was Hernandez, Heriberto Hernandez, and Stephen Ridge. They're both BPD, and they with Albert on the fugitive unit or whatever. And I had a chance to talk with David yesterday, and I asked him, how come you didn't call them? And he said Auntie Bev wouldn't let them. I did not know
was he the guy that Brian Albert allegedly sucker punched like at a Christmas party or something?
Yeah.
Did you confirm that?
Yes, David told me that they wanted to call. He was one of many. Like Morrissey, we never heard about Morrissey. Turns out he was not allowed to call Morrissey or Stephen Nelson.
Bev said no at all.
Bev said no to them. Yeah.
So
Wow.
so those Boston police officers, was that at I heard it was P. Foley's or whatever. Do you know if that happened at that restaurant or was it somewhere else?
I tried reaching out to Eddie Hernandez and I couldn't get a hold of him, so I wasn't able to confirm. But multiple people told me that. I don't think Brian Albert is that liked in the Boston Police Department. He scares the shit out of me more than any of them. Like he's scary, man. Like he's the, if you want to murder somebody, have Brian Albert on your side, because that guy obviously knows how to get away with it. And just has this vibe to him, man, that just, the two on the stand that scared me the most because they lied so easily and comfortably and somewhat well were Brian Albert and Brian Tully. Like Brian Tully was not fazed at all by Alan Jackson at all. The rest of them, he got to him a little bit. Brian Tully was just, nope, you're not going to break me. You're not going to break. It was just bizarre.
stoic the whole time. Yeah.
Mhm.
Now, there was a woman that had called in to the Young Jerks, and I think my show one time. You probably remember this story, Aidan. Was the lady that was one of the people was holding signs, and then a cop actually, I think from the state police or Boston police or whatever it was. I think it was the Boston police that actually approached her and told her every cop hated Brian Albert.
Oh
Do you
yeah,
remember that story?
yeah. People have got
Yeah.
messages like that in my inbox. You know, a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't publish it because it's like an unverified
Yeah.
anecdote, but you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if Brian Albert scares you, right? And you're a pretty tough guy. Could you imagine what the jury, how the jury felt like when he shows up for closing arguments and he's staring right at them, like busting out of his collar, fidgeting in his seat, like mouthing, you know, trying to so hard to keep his mouth shut. And it looks like he said the F word a couple times, you know, while he was sitting there. Somebody had zoomed in on him during Alan Jackson's closing, and it was like, creepy. It was creepy to watch from home. And if he scares you, like, could you imagine how the jury felt with him sitting there right across from them?
yeah. Do you guys think that was a good play or a bad play on the part of the Commonwealth?
Well,
They obviously approved of it. That wasn't a surprise to them that those three showed up.
no, but I think it's more an O'Keefe decision than a Lally thing. No, I think it's a terrible look. I mean, I made a joke. I posted a picture of Vincenzo Pentangeli, you know, Michael Corleone and his wife sitting there in the audience. That's what it felt like. And the idea that, you know, a closing is being made and they're sitting right behind there and he's calling, for all intents and purposes, Brian Albert a criminal who may be complicit in a homicide and something else. And what he's saying about Jennifer McCabe repeatedly lying, and they're sitting right there. It's a terrible look. On the other hand, the O'Keefes, the way they view it, they may be signaling to the jury that we're giving them our blessing of approval, that they're clean. But
yeah, and what if that one rogue juror is just like that's what I think about. If that one rogue juror was like, well, if the O'Keefes think it's bullshit, then why shouldn't I?
Or they're like, okay, now Brian Albert's been here twice. He knows who I am. I'm afraid of him. Right? They've
Could
run
be any of
background
those
checks.
things.
They
Could
know the
be any
names.
of
I
them.
mean, if somebody wanted to find out who these people were, I would imagine it wouldn't be that difficult.
Public
And
list.
that's scary.
it's so weird too, because the crappy little courtroom where they're right across from the jury. I mean, they're like 10 feet away, and you're looking for 3 hours at this big bald meathead staring at you, as you said, bursting out of his collar. And, you know, he's got his nephew there who they've accused of, you know, doing something terrible, who has no reason to be there. He has no relationship with the O'Keefes at all. I mean, that is clearly somebody that they put there for some other nefarious purpose or intimidating purpose. It's just, I think it's a terrible look. I would hope that would not be the reason why some juror would say, oh God, I can't vote guilty now. I mean, that strikes me as hard to believe, but something's going on with some juror who just can't see the obvious thing here.
I don't know. It's like, if I was it's got to be a lot easier to go from guilty to not guilty than vice versa. If you're like the deciding vote, you're the deciding vote that puts someone away for life and you're not 100% sure of it. That's like telltale heart shit. Like, it's going to sit on you. Whereas if you're the opposite, if you're like the last one to go to not guilty, it's like, well, she's going home anyway, if it's a hung jury. So what does it matter?
Right.
It's true. It's much less
doesn't matter?
feeding your conscience than the other way. No question.
Right.
Let's hope that happens.
Yeah,
Monday.
I mean, hopefully the guy comes in and says, fuck it, whoever that juror is. It's just not worth my time anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
I just can't see 12 people agreeing that she's guilty. I mean, there's just
No way.
so much reasonable doubt. Like, that's just
That'll never happen. Ever.
You would need literally 12 science deniers in the same room.
Yeah. I hope Massachusetts hasn't fallen that low.
Statistically, to find 12 people together, like it's impossible.
Yep, I agree.
12 Kevins.
Yeah. Right.
You're not kidding. Like, that all get
There's a lot of women on the jury, so I'm
Yeah,
going to put
jury.
faith in them.
Well, he probably wouldn't get picked. I mean, he's just creepy looking, and I don't. I mean, imagine that guy on a veneer on a voir dire panel, and
you talking over everybody.
You know what do you do? I host a podcast that has an audience and sit from my mother's attic, and I just do nothing.
I tell people to shut the F up.
And that guy is the reason why they invented peremptory challenges. I can't give you a good reason to get rid of him, but just get him the hell out of here because
nobody wants him.
Off.
Truth, logic, Sound mind and judgment here on Yellow Cottage Tales.
Tell us how you really feel, Mark.
You have to watch the summation. I'm
I
telling
can't
you.
All
wait
right,
to
people.
watch.
Somebody in the chat was like, "This, there's nothing funny about this. There is nothing funny about
Oh,
this, and
man.
we
So
know that
I
there's
know.
nothing funny about this, and there's nothing more horrific than what is going on here. But sometimes
Yeah.
we have to make light of it, or else we're just gonna all cry, right?
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah,
think
true.
any of this is funny.
I mean, it's kind of funny. Not
yeah.
like the whole like Alan Jackson saying, "I'm gonna fuck you up in court." That's funny.
That was funny. That was funny.
Well, I can't get that bang bang song out of my head. So
video.
thanks a lot, whoever made that
That was
bang
the
bang
best
song, because it's
Yeah.
such an
best ever.
earworm.
I didn't
That was
make.
a classic.
I did the pictures to the audio, but I can't take credit for the audio. Somebody sent
You
that.
know,
to me. This is too good
A
not to
couple
share.
of weeks ago, actually, when I was going on your show on Saturday night, a couple of weeks ago, you play that at the beginning, and I had my computer on, and my kid was walking around, and he starts hearing this, and of course, when he's 14, and so what's the funniest thing in the world when you're 14? Swearing, farting,
Right.
that kind of stuff, and he's like, what is this? And all he wants to do is hear this bang bang. So he doesn't know anything about what it's about, but he just wants to hear that song constantly because
You're a bitch, bro.
Now you're the coolest dad
You're
ever.
a bitch.
That's
I'm
what
gonna
it took.
fuck you up.
No, but the first time you're listening, you're like, objection.
Say
You
it.
could take him to
I'll
the
allow
duck
it.
boat parade. You could take him to the
Yeah,
Celtics
yeah.
games. But now, after the bang bang song, you're the coolest dad ever.
Oh,
See?
You didn't
you're
say you
a
were gonna hurt him. You said I'm gonna fuck you up, right?
Okay.
That's what you
You up.
said.
God, it's
There goes all the ad money tonight.
Yeah, sorry about that, Mike.
Oh, dude.
Whatever. It's worth it.
it's a funny video.
This is a good comment right here. We've mentioned this before, but I would love to get this panel's
I
response.
investigated this, and
Yeah. What do you
wanted
think
to
about them,
explore-
Brian and Jen, meeting at the cemetery?
Here's the thing with that. So I've gotten, starting in March, I started getting emails showing me pictures of Jen McCabe's car parked with the Brian Albert mobile or this truck that I couldn't get the license plate on. So that was odd, like frequent cemetery visits. And like, we know that when Jen visited the Proctors, she's likely doing that because they think their phones are tapped.
That's totally why they would do
And
it.
so, but then I looked into it, and Jen McCabe's mother died like 25 years ago. And she's buried in that cemetery. And so it's plausible, because we didn't get any pictures of who was driving those cars. It's very plausible that Jennifer McCabe was driving one car and Nicole Albert, her sister, was driving the other, and they were visiting the grave. So it wasn't like
Isn't
enough
that?
to write about, but it's definitely weird how often they visit their mother who died 25 years ago.
Maybe they're asking for her guidance,
Yeah, maybe.
talking to her, like looking for advice or something. You never know.
I wonder if the feds planted any bugs out there. They did that to Whitey. They put bugs like in the trash cans where he used to go out in the he used to go to this park, South Boston. They put the bugs in the trash cans.
It's very hard to get a Title III, and if they have them on them, then something's happening. That's not easy. It takes a lot of effort. You need a lot of signatures, including Washington, D.C., a lot of things to get that kind of warrant.
Like, do you think the jurors ask themselves, why do we have Michael Proctor's text messages? This is not normal. This can't be normal, right? Like, why do we have lead investigators' text messages?
Right, from his personal phone too.
Yeah,
It's
why do we-
personal phone.
Why do
I don't
we
know if they
You think
would
he'll come up on
connect
his own?
that to the FBI. I don't know. I mean, like, for example, I know in Massachusetts, it's like really hard to get people's phone records. You have to, there's a certain rule of criminal procedure. And in this case, the judge denied it. I got news for you. In New York, you just whip up a subpoena and you can do one of two things. You send it out under your own name and you subpoena it to the court. Court gets it. 99% of the time, they're like, oh, I got some records for you. What is this? Okay, here you go. Or you get a so ordered subpoena. You just have a judge sign the subpoena and it's whatever. But you get phone records like nothing. In a case like this, you would order all these people's phone records and you would have them in a couple of weeks. No problem. Massachusetts, I mean, she gets involved and just shuts it all down and they have to get it from the feds. I don't know.
do you think the jury's cognizant enough to realize like the whole federal investigation thing without it? It was being referred to a million times. Ryan Nagel let it slip once.
So they know.
They know.
I think they know ARCA has got to be the feds. I can't believe they would not know that other agency, given
That's a
specific-
mystery, right? Yeah, whether they know.
I don't know how they couldn't know. I mean, who else would be hiring accident recon? You know, there's been, like you said, Ryan Nagel basically said, "Oh, the feds came and spoke to me," or
Mhm.
I testified in the federal grand jury, whatever it was. All these other witnesses talked about testifying in some other proceeding, and now somebody's ordering accident reconstruction work in a case that they're not prosecuting. I mean, that's hard to
Unless
believe.
they think it's like an insurance investigation, because there's a civil case pending. Maybe they think there's
I don't know.
like a civil lawsuit for wrongful death, and maybe
Exactly.
that's where these guys came from. I
But
mean, that's a
I think-
possibility. An insurance investigation
All
of some
the
kind.
you testified at this other proceeding on this date.
Yeah.
How many times have we
Yeah.
heard that?
But I think
Maybe it's a
Jack
light. Yeah, go ahead.
did it really well. I don't think he said other entity. I think he said other agency,
Right.
which means government.
They could think it's some kind of light. As a financial advisor in the past, I think like licensing. That's what I mean. I just wonder if they maybe think it's something like that. Like the police now get licensed in Massachusetts. I don't know.
I don't know.
It was so in the news for so long locally. Like, there's no way that these people didn't hear about
I hope,
this.
yeah, I
No,
hope
Just
they
like
know it.
anybody who ever
About
picked up a
the Reed
newspaper.
case.
You got to think at least
On
one of
Missouri,
them.
They didn't know anything about the Reed case.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Can't be.
Yeah, well, wait till they have to retry the case again, and all the prospective jurors are watching this, watching other podcasts, reading news, seeing what's going on.
Yep.
Impossible.
I know
Yep.
you said change of venue, Mark, but I don't know if it's that easy because we looked into that for my case. Because obviously Norfolk County is extremely biased against me.
Not easy.
It's
It's
hard.
not-
They didn't let
never
the
confusion.
Boston bomber do it. I mean, that was the feds, but still, like
It
it's
almost
very hard
never
here. It seems
happens.
like
But
yeah.
this case in this county is saturated with media, and it also, I mean, there's allegations of corruption with town police officers and state police, and everyone knows everyone. You make the motion. The worst thing that can happen is it doesn't get granted. Now, I don't even know how they do it, the logistics. I know in New York, you'd have to go to the appellate division to make the motion, but you conduct surveys. They would have to do phone surveys, attach all the media, all the podcasts. And if they attached phone surveys where basically 98% of the people in Norfolk County said they're familiar with this case, you certainly would have a basis. Now,
They're not gonna, but you go to Bristol County, Plymouth County, it's going to be the same thing. This is all over Massachusetts. Worcester County-
that's a problem, is that Massachusetts is small geographically and it's all the same media market. That's true. I mean, you could theoretically be chucking this out to like Springfield or something. But on the other hand, if you could get these people out of their comfort zone, I'm talking even the DA, let them play on the road a little bit. You try to do it. We'll see. It probably won't work, but you try it, whatever you can do. But
The question about the McAlberts being there, the three of them being so close to the jury, could that be a grounds for any type of appeal later?
no, it's a public courtroom. I mean, it's weird, but they're allowed to go.
Mhm.
Once the evidence was closed, I assume they didn't come earlier, or they couldn't because they were on the defense witness list. But summations are not evidence, and it's a free courtroom, and they got there.
It was risky, though. It was risky because
Yeah,
it could go one of two ways. The jury could think, okay, well, the family's okay with them being here, so the family doesn't think they did it. Or they could think they're here to intimidate us and we're not going to be intimidated. So
It's a bad look for the O'Keefes. I mean, I understand what, they go through things differently. And I know other people here have stronger opinions about that. I know, but I don't know why they would invite that. I don't think it looks good for them at all. I mean, these could be the people who theoretically killed your relative, and you're cozying up to them because you're so obsessed with making sure Karen Reed goes down because you hate her so much. I mean, it's kind of sad. You look like you're getting taken advantage of, and they're just laughing at you as you're parading them around. It's awful.
how about let's just manifest that come Monday, there's going to be an acquittal, and then we can all go back to our regular lives. How about that?
Please.
Manifest it.
It would have been.
That's
I thought about that. I got so excited between 3:45 and 4:15. I'm like, this could be it. I went out to the crowd and started talking to people. My people are fired up. Like, this could be it. And then we got inside and it was just, have a good weekend.
Yeah.
So what was the mood like outside after court? Was everybody still real positive, or was everybody kind of like?
Yeah, I mean, no, like positive, but like, that's all.
Is the crowd the
will be
same?
there again on Monday. It just sucks because like people have jobs and stuff. Like people are like, I took a day off from work. I can't keep taking days off from work.
That's what I was wondering.
That's what's
Are
happening to
people
me,
still
you know?
coming?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the crowd as big like as it was on Tuesday?
The-
Tuesday it
the
seemed
big-
huge.
Wednesday was the biggest day.
Okay.
That was Wednesday, I think, was the biggest day. Today was pretty big. Yesterday was a little smaller, but I mean, Wednesday was well over 1,000 people.
It's
Well
going to
over
end
1,000
Monday.
people.
I'm
I mean, it's
tempted to go now. I finished my trial. I'm free. Monday's going to be the day, one way or the other. It's
You're
going to
going back?
You think so?
I didn't say that. I said I'm tempted.
How
But
do you
it's-
have time, Mark, to do what you do and still follow this case? I wonder that with like
He's been at trial this week, a bench trial, right?
When do you sleep?
Right.
There's plenty of time for sleeping when you're dead, right? Isn't that the
true.
expression?
I wonder about that about law tubers, like because this is like to follow this case is like a full-time job, and then to actually have a full-time job where you have clients and whatnot,
Well,
like it's gotta
That's
be-
why I said I couldn't do that. I don't want a YouTube channel, or because I couldn't.
I
do
know.
it.
Don't. Yeah.
I like
You'll-
this.
I started out as a full-time dog walker. Now I think I'm full-time YouTuber.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like I still walk dogs, but it's becoming, it's
Yeah.
weird. I mean, this trial has taken over my life. I think it's taken over everybody's life.
I know. It's crazy.
I want to
said-
thank you all for being here. Turtle Boy, you got me
thank
onto this. I want to thank Melanie
Yep.
Little. You really helped me too when I was like down and out. It was a tough time. Attorney Bederow, you've been here like every night. And Mazza Media, obviously, and my boy. It's a
You're
great
welcome, man.
panel tonight. Do you guys have final thoughts? Let's start with Mazza Media. You have any final thoughts for everyone tonight?
Well, I had about 65% confidence that this would end today. Going into today, I have about 85% confidence going into Monday, and I think it probably could be a chip shot for all we know, where it's over by lunch. It could definitely be in that realm right now, considering that they asked for an extension this afternoon. It went to 4:15. A lot of us thought that there was a great chance it could end right there and then today. It did not. But with that said, it means that they're probably really, really close right now, and a little bit more deliberating and going over a few more things in the morning. And like I said, if it's 11 to noon time on Monday and we're all cheering that she's not guilty, or if it's a hung jury, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility at all. And I'll just keep it brief and short tonight.
Awesome. You two, you're great. Thank you so much, Mazza, for being here every night.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Aiden, what do you have any final thoughts for us today?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I think it's a coin toss 50-50 about whether or not this goes to hung jury, just because we don't know how stubborn whoever this juror is. Like they have to be really stubborn to even be in this position to begin with. And that's unfortunate. You'd have to have somebody who's willing to give in. If they haven't given in at this point, are they ever going to give in? So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm not as positive as Maz was there that this will end in an acquittal. It cannot end in a conviction. And if we don't get an acquittal, I mean, that sucks, man, because that's going to be one of those things. Like, I want an acquittal just for bragging rights, because I don't want them to be able to say, well, hung jury,
Right.
and then they quit.
Right.
Like, I need a win here. I need
Mhm.
the W.
Yeah.
I got a lot riding on this personally and professionally. I need an acquittal. So
Yep.
hopefully we get that. I'm here too.
Yep.
Look
I
at
hear you
Alex.
on that.
Look at
Oh,
the
yeah.
comment. That's hilarious. There's Haley. Haley says this is their first panel where I'm single-handedly 3 of the people in the panel. So
I think I got
Haley
nailed.
is me.
You,
I
he's
am
me, and
Haley.
he's Turtle Boy, right?
Oh, Mike, you're
They'll say we saw her looking at her phone. She was typing
He's
in the
all
super
3 of
chat."
us at once.
Well, wait a
This
minute.
little-
Somebody record this and send this so you have proof, right?
That's
Well,
right.
what we
This
need to
is
do is
the
get
time.
Haley up on the panel so that we can have Haley
Yeah.
talk sometime. But
I don't think Haley will do that unless he has a voice changer. We talked about it.
my final thoughts are, I think in song lyrics, those of you who know me, and in the words of the great Jimmy Buffett, come Monday, it'll be all right. Okay, so let's all just take a deep breath over the weekend, and we can trust that the jury is taking this really seriously, because they did say, look, they had the option to leave at 3:30, right? So they decided they were going to stick it out until 4:15. That's a good sign, and it's a good sign that they said at 4:15 we want to come back Monday. They didn't send out another note saying we're still deadlocked, we want to go forever. So let's just keep the faith. That's another song, and we'll see what happens Monday. But there's no way that she's going to be convicted. It's either going to be a hung jury or an acquittal. That's the worst case, is a hung jury, in my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.
Oh, I love it. I love that you get the music thing. George Michael, right?
Yeah,
Yes, I know all of them. I love.
you
the
got to have
music.
faith.
Like,
Faith
I knew
is-
both.
Oh,
Yeah.
they said keep
Baby.
it.
You could also say
There you
Limp
go.
Bizkit too, right? They did the
Right,
cover.
the remake. Yeah.
Yeah, the remix. George Michael's version
The
much
remix,
better.
yeah.
I think he's the original. So, Attorney Bederow.
All right, so it's going to end Monday, I think. Of course, I thought it would end like 5 days ago, so maybe I should stop with this. But no, all kidding aside, the worst case scenario is going to be a hung jury, which means she walks out, and there's a decent chance if that happens that the case never gets retried. It may, but realistically, if that's the worst option, it could be a lot worse than that, like 25 to life in prison, which is never going to happen. So I still think, maybe I'm, the naive one here, that there is a very respectable chance that something happens on Monday that ends it with finality. I think the weekend is actually a good thing to increase that possibility. It's been a lot of days of going nowhere, but well rested, personal life, less case thinking can help refresh for Monday. And you have to think that these guys know how to pick a jury. I mean, these are as experienced lawyers as you get. They pick these people. Hopefully they didn't make a mistake and they'll be able to finish it on Monday. So I think there is a chance of that, but the worst case, either way, she's going to walk out and be free. And it's just a matter of whether she's going to have to go back. Having said that, a hung jury is a little disappointing for a couple of reasons. It's not being found not guilty. It's, when you claim you're innocent, that's kind of a little strike against it in terms of the public perception, unfortunately. But eventually, somehow, some way, whether it's in a courtroom, media, somehow,
Netflix special.
that kind of stuff, she'll get it out there. And the other issue is, which would be disappointing, I suppose, for her and her lawyers, is if it is a hung jury, they're going to have to bite their tongues for a little time before they can really, what did I say the other day? Well, I won't say that again. I don't want you to lose your advertising.
Oh, we already did. Don't worry about that.
No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to say it, but
We
they're
don't
going to have to
We-
hold their tongues a little longer. But again, the goal of the exercise is to keep her free, win the case. It's just a matter of time, and I think there's a chance that could be Monday. So don't
Awesome.
assume all is lost. There's no reason to think that. There's no evidence. There's no credible evidence against this woman. None.
Let's hope so. I think everyone keep the
Nope.
faith. I like that. Keep your fingers crossed. If you pray this weekend. Like, this is a good time to do that. I would also throw some money at freekarenread.net if you have, if you can afford it. I would suggest doing that. I want to thank our guests again. Great. If you're not following them, follow them. Mazza Media. He's got a YouTube and a Twitter. Make sure you follow him. Attorney Melanie Little. You're probably already following her. She's got a great YouTube. I watch it all the time. Along with Dr. Turtleboy Daily News. Check him out, subscribe. And Attorney Bederow, Bederow Law on Twitter X. You can also follow him. I want to thank you all. This has been such a great pleasure to have you all here tonight for our audience. I'm really happy to have you. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Free Karen Reed.
Free Karen Reed. Awesome. And I'm going to read some super chats. Thank you to our guests again so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
See you
Mike.
soon.
I hope to have you all again. Thank you. This was a great night. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Attorney Bederow. Thank you, Uncle Turtle Boy, Aidan, Kearney, and Mazza Media. That was great. And thank you to all of our guests. All of our super chats. Excuse me. So many super chats coming in. 168. I can't post them all. I can't read them all. Thank you. I try to read them all. I do try to post them. I hope people don't get mad at me. There's no guarantee that we're going to post your super chat just because you sent money, especially on these shows when we have so many great guests and we have questions for them and conversation flow. It's unfortunate we can't get them all up, but it's a good problem to have. Not complaining about it. I want to thank everyone who's been reaching out, supporting old and new friends and new listeners. And I just love our chat. Yeah, I love Melanie. She is so good. I love how she threw in the music things too. Was it George Michael? What was the other one? Whatever, but it was good. She is really good. And obviously, Turtle Boy's great. And Attorney Bederow. We are so lucky. Mazza Media. He's got the young buck, young talent. I feel very, it's weird. It's a weird thing to feel so happy about my own life, but to be worried about Karen Reed and the situation. So it's like, I'm very happy and thankful for the show and all of the support you've given me. but I'm also kind of stressed out because I just want her to be found not guilty. I mean, that's it, right? I mean, we all want this over. I can't imagine how much stress she's going through. And then it's going to have to go to Monday now. I just hope she's keeping her head up. Send Karen Reed and her family all the support we can right now. And if you can, make a donation. FreeKarenReed.net. I'm going to read a couple of your Venmos that came through tonight and Cash Apps. Deborah sent $25. She said, support. Thank you so much, Deborah. Very generous of you. Lisa sent $5 on the Cash App. She said, oh, hey, Lisa, I'm back. Thank you so much. And Heather, excuse me. Heather said $5. And she said, thank you for all you do. Hashtag FKR. Thank you so much, Heather. Stacy sent $20. She said, I thought about Coffin Daffer calling out the juror with the pink dress. Could that be considered doxing? I would not be happy if that were me. Gonna have to check out that tweet. I know some people sent me that tweet today. I'm gonna check that out. There's also a movement on Monday. Everyone, no matter where you are, wear pink on Monday. Let's everyone wear pink and let's everyone donate if we can to freekarenreed.net this weekend.